We're talking about Amanda's paranormal investigation at Four Peaks today, and we're also going to share some audio clips from the investigation. We'll also go over the history of the property, as well as who may be haunting it.
Hi, welcome to True Creeps, where the stories are true
And the creeps are real.
We'll cover stories from grotesque gore
To the possibly plausible paranormal.
to horrifying history
To tense and terrible true crime.
and everything else that goes bump in the night. We're your hosts, Amanda.
And I'm Lindsay, and we want you to join us while we creep.
We cover mature topics. Listener discretion is advised. Hello, everyone. Today, we are going to be chatting about a really cool opportunity that I had to do a paranormal investigation at Four Peaks Brewing Company in Tempe, Arizona.
It's very exciting.
It's very exciting. Yes, it was great. But I want you to stick around at the end because we're going to let you know how you can sign up for their annual haunted brewery tour, which is already happening. And I have to say, in my opinion, they have the best theme this year. I'm not going to give it away, but I very much like their theme.
Yes, it's very Amanda-centric. Like, I'm also a fan, but I think Amanda's more of a fan.
Yeah.
It's not the center of a peanut butter cup, though. That is not the theme of it.
I mean, yeah, that would be a fantastic theme as well, but it is not that. Also, when you go, there's a shirt that you get, and I'm obsessed with this year's shirt. So just head over to their website. It'll be in our show notes, and we'll talk about it at the end if you want to sign up to have a spooky experience as well.
Perfect.
Now, what is Four Peaks? Let's talk about that. Four Peaks is the largest and oldest craft brewery in Arizona. This particular location on 8th Street is housed inside a 133-year-old former creamery and ice factory with a history of tragic events and also some very spirited visitors. Also, just because a couple of us ate there before the investigation, the drinks, the food, and the service is amazing, I will say. So even if you don't want to go there for spooky reasons, I do definitely recommend it. And I think I will be bringing Lindsay there next time she visits as well.
Yes, I'm excited to see it in person.
Yes. So first, as always, let's chat about the history of the area and the building. So the address is 1340 East 8th Street in Tempe, Arizona. And before it was even a building, it was indigenous land, like most places, right? There's a ton on their history, but for the sake of time, we're going to summarize a short portion of it. So the Salt River Valley was home to the Oodum and Piposh people. Hopefully I'm saying it right. I watched a few videos and I was like, please let me say this right. They had elaborate farming systems, and originally they did have a very good relationship with settlers in the area. They lived along the Salt River, which helped them to be amazing farmers. There's some art online of like what their farming looked like, and it's intense and amazing. They were very intelligent the way that they put everything together.
I feel like when you have a very purposeful relationship with the land, you're just more likely to be able to work with it better. Like with anything,
Yeah.
right? Like when you're kind, you probably get some kindness back a little bit.
Yeah, when you respect things. Yeah. But yeah, they were amazing farmers. And as the population of settlers grew, the settlers ended up diverting water and pretty much dismantling their farming systems and their practices, which pushed a lot of them off the land. Then the U.S. acquired the area where Tempe would eventually be established in treaties with Mexico, and those were signed between 1848 and 1954. Then the U.S. government established a large reservation, and then, of course, they shrank the reservation substantially. By the early 1890s, the land had been converted into industrial property. And 8th Street, where the brewery is curved because originally it was following the river, which I thought was interesting. We do want to point out, though, that the Oodum and the Piposh people still do have a presence in the area, and they're part of the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian community. And personally, I have a bunch of friends that live on the reservation. And fun fact, my first real job was on the reservation when I was 16. And so I have pretty good ties to that area. And just for everyone that's listening too, they have a great website that really breaks down their history and their influence to Arizona. And me as someone who's lived here, I've gone on the website for things before, like when I worked out there, especially. But I feel like I didn't read enough or understand enough of their history, so I actually was excited to learn a little bit more about them this week.
Yeah. So the first building Spoiler alert, there's a few. But the first building that was there was built in 1892, and it's listed on the National Register of Historic Places in Maricopa County. And at that time, it was F.A. Hughes' ice plant. You fucking know I love an ice plant. I love the idea
She
that we
really
had
does.
ice factories and shit. Like, I find that so fascinating. But anyway, within a few years, it became Tempe Creamery, then Tempe Mesa Produce Company. Then in 1907, Pacific Creamery Company purchased the property. They were largely working out of California at that point, and they ended up employing around 50 people and became one of Tempe's largest employers. They made products like condensed milk, butter, cheese, and of course, ice. Then in 1915, the Tempe Creamery office was built and added to the complex, so the property starts to expand. And just as an interesting note as we work through our timeline, Arizona didn't officially become a state until 1912. It's bizarre to think about like the timeline of the US because you think it was more than 100 and some years.
Yeah, Arizona's still fairly new.
Yeah. Anywho, continuing on with the history of this particular property, Borden Milk Company then purchased the property 20 years later in 1927. They expanded the complex and remodeled, and at that point, it had grown to 9 buildings, which that's pretty big.
Mhm.
They continued to operate it until it sold in 1953, but the creamery left a lasting impression, so much so that they named a nearby park after it. It's the Creamery Park, and they did that in 1999.
Isn't that cute? I like it.
Yeah. I also just have a very unsettling vision of what that park looks like. There's no reason for me to think that there's like milk-themed playgrounds, and yet here I am.
I wish there was.
That's a weird thing to
It's
wish.
so weird.
Yeah, I do like a weird thing, though. It feels like a roadside attraction. Instead of water
Yeah.
fountains, they have milk fountains. It's gross.
Okay, no, I thought you meant milk themed, like play equipment, not that it would have
It's
milk
made
in
of
it.
milk. Yeah, no, both.
Oh
Both.
no.
Yeah, there's a
No,
fountain, but
especially
it's
in the
milk.
Arizona heat.
I know. It's like, there's nothing like a nice sip of cold milk from a milk fountain.
Oh, it wouldn't be gold.
Yeah. Well, no, they would have an intense refrigeration system.
Maybe ice.
Maybe they would have ice. Yeah.
Ew, ice milk. I hate it.
I know. So after that location for Borden Milk closed, Arden Farms took over the property briefly until 1966. And although a lot of the surrounding area changed significantly, the old creamery complex remained. So for decades, this was a creamery in some way.
Yeah.
And, you know, like any old creamery, it then had a second life. Well, actually a third life, because the first life was an ice plant. So then it moves on to become a Korean grocer, then a furniture builder. Then there's a computer hardware company there, and then a fortune cookie factory. And then, like, when I think fortune cookie factory, the next thing I think is obviously going to be that that's where the Gin Blossoms would record.
Of course.
That's just standard facts, right? So Robin Wilson from the Gin Blossoms purchased what used to be that creamery office we mentioned earlier to set up a recording studio. And it was Uranus Recording of Tempe. And then in December of 1994, the band started using the space. And they used it as a practicing space and a studio, but then it grew. So other well-known artists end up working in that space, including, you know, just like a locally known lady from Phoenix, Stevie Nicks, you know, just a local gal. Most people probably haven't heard of her.
Casually.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
So the studio also hosted live radio sessions with a local station that had bands play like Bare Naked Ladies, Foster the People, and some others. But then in 2015, Robin closed the space. So now remember, Robin didn't purchase the entire like creamery compound, if you will. They just purchased the office. So the rest of it was purchased by Four Peaks in 1995, and then it opened in 1996. Then in 2016, that's when Four Peaks acquired the rest, which was the creamery office where the Uranus recording space was. And that added another 2,000 square feet to what they had. And then that update became a new bar area, a retail shop, and it expanded their patio.
Yeah. And I did see dogs on the patio when I was there. Just
Hell yeah.
saying, dog friendly.
10 out of 10.
That's always my favorite. Yeah, 10 out of 10. So let's talk about some more history, but include some notable events that happened in this area. We were sent a couple articles about the place before we went for our investigation. Unfortunately, a lot of them don't have dates, but they're interesting reads, and we can kind of get an idea of it based off of what they were calling the company in the article.
That makes sense.
So in May of 1901, there was a railway accident that involved a train colliding with a wagon on 8th Street. And the wagon was carrying 3 men. One of the men was named James, and unfortunately, he was found dead at the scene in a ditch. He had a bad temple wound and a broken leg. Another man named George died in the most horrific way. His body was underneath the train and had been cut down the middle.
That is obviously horrifying, but it also feels like something that doesn't happen in real life. It sounds like a cartoon.
It does. And then the third man, his name was Horace, and he was injured, but he survived. He had a very bad scalp wound, a badly injured hip, and a broken arm. Also, just to note, the horses pulling the wagon also survived. But still a horrific tragedy that no one should ever experience.
No.
Now, in another article, it said this happened while it was the Pacific Creamery Company. Fireman McGuire had a very bad accident while working one day. The plant used oil as fuel, and around 11, he went up to fire one of the boilers. He turned on the oil expecting the plate was hot enough to ignite it. And per the article, quote, failing to do this, he lighted a piece of waste and threw it into the oil. So I'm wondering if maybe he used a piece of paper or used something to try to get it to light. Now, when he did that, instantly there was a terrific explosion, as the paper says, and a flame shot out of the firebox, striking him squarely in the face.
Fuck.
Right? A doctor was called in, and he ended up being badly burned on his face, which was horribly blistered. His head was burned, one of his shoulders was burned, and his shirt had caught fire in a couple places. Luckily, he survived, but from what the paper said, it was incredibly painful.
I mean, when you have fire in your face, I feel like that's a given.
Yeah, horrific. And now another article that happened while it was the Pacific Creamery states that there was another accident that took place nearby. And a man named Charles Smith was hit by a car around 9:30 in the evening. The driver, MP Holiday, was blinded by oncoming headlights, and it caused him to swerve the car. And unfortunately, Charles ended up passing away from getting hit by the car. He did pass away at the hospital the following morning. Charles was out in the evening because he had been driving a team of mules and dump wagons from Phoenix to the railroad. And what had happened is he was camping out for the night west of the creamery. And when he was crossing, he was actually in the middle of the road because he had taken the mules to get a drink from the canal nearby. And it sounds like he was heading back when he was hit.
That's awful.
Right? A lot of horrible accidents around this little area.
So when the property was the Borden Company Creamery, there was a man named Victor A. Vogel who worked there until he retired. When he retired, he was a superintendent. So there was an article in the paper when he passed away, but he didn't pass away at the creamery. He passed away in the hospital. And the reason why we specify that, because that's a strange thing to specify, is where this man died, right? Is because many people think he's still there keeping an eye on the building. And we thought it might be interesting to look into him a little bit, especially because we're going to talk about him later too. So This way we can kind of introduce you to someone who is perhaps there. So Victor was born on May 1st of 1888 in Haverstraw, New York, and he died on September 1st, 1972 in Tempe a few months before his 84th birthday. And he moved to Arizona in 1927, and he was a superintendent at Borden from 1927 to 1943. So quite a while.
Yeah, he was a busy guy.
Yeah, and when we say busy, we mean he was busy. I know that he must have had one of those little those little leather planners with all the tabs, like a day runner. He had he had to have a day runner.
The size of a phone book.
The size of a phone book. It was it wasn't a daily one, it was an hourly one, and every hour got its own page. Because Let's talk about what he was doing. So during his time in Arizona, some notable events. One, he married a woman named Eileen. He also owned Vogel Hatchery, Vogel's Drive-In. He was a board member of the Tempe Union High School District. He was also a member of the Tempe Chamber of Commerce, and he was even president of the Chamber of Commerce at one point, and was a part of the Tempe Rotary Club. And so, with his light schedule, he also had 2 sons, Harold and Theodore, and ended up having 4 grandkids and 1 great-grandchild.
What a life.
Whew, that's a lot. I'm tired.
Yeah.
I'm tired.
He seemed like he was insanely efficient to be able to do all of that because
that's a lot.
I have no idea how he did.
He's got a full roster. He is a busy guy.
Yeah.
Wow.
So with that being said, though, I feel like the rules and managing would be very important to him.
I agree. I also think that if you're a person who's involved in that much stuff, you are probably not getting into like the weeds of everything a lot. You're probably doing a lot of overseeing and keeping an eye on people.
Yeah.
And with a efficient and critical eye, right? You're just like aware of like what's going on, making sure things are moving along. Not a lot of like time for let's be chill, let's have a little chat, like let's do this. It's like, no, we're working, let's go.
Yes.
So we're now going to talk about something else that happened at the creamery. On January 31st of 1909, an 11-year-old boy named Harry Williams died. And it's pretty tragic what happened. So
It is.
he was the son of a Pacific Creamery employee, and he had just moved with his father from Buena Park, California. And his mom hadn't gotten to Arizona yet. So Harry was playing with one of his friends, Victor Horble, near the creamery when he climbed a government transmission tower. And so, like, thinking a power line is, like, similar to what it is, right? It's got live power. And when he was doing this, he accidentally touched a live wire with his bare foot and got electrocuted. The boys had taken off their shoes to climb because they thought they would have a better grip. And Victor was still on the ground when Harry was electrocuted. Witnesses say that Harry briefly hung from the tower and then fell 30 to 40 feet to the ground.
Makes my heart sad.
Yes. Yes. I mean, especially you're thinking like little kids being little kids, just climbing around, like playing outside, and like just this horrific thing happens.
Mm-hmm.
And also, like, I can't even imagine being like a little kid watching your friend die. Like, it's sad to watch a friend die at any age, but something about being a child and watching it feels much worse.
It should never happen.
No.
Yeah.
No. And again, remember Victor, because we're going to talk about him later as well. So we couldn't find a year, but there was a story that at one point there was a cat that was in the building and it was on the top rafters during a monsoon and it fell down and it didn't survive.
Poor kitty.
So a cat has possibly died there.
Yeah. So now that we know a lot of history of the area and around the building, let's talk spooky stories. Let's talk about the spirits that may be housed inside this building. Now, we've heard that there could be around 9 or more spirits hanging out, which is a lot for like one area. It is a very big building, I will say. It's huge.
It feels like a lot for a brewery.
It does.
And like a former creamery. It just doesn't seem like I feel like 1 or 2 maybe there, but not 10.
Yeah.
Not like double digits almost, you know?
Right. Now, some people have seen what they call the gray man, who was like 8 feet tall and occasionally is seen around some of the barrels.
Interesting.
You know, like giant shadow people always freak us out, especially after going to Malvern.
Yes. Also, seeing an unexplained shadow in and of itself, I'm like,
Exactly.
bizarre.
Yeah. Another spirit that people believe is there is a little girl, and she's been known to be in one of the barrel rooms. And she does seem to be more active with certain people, typically like parents or parental figures. There is a spirit that the employees call Anthony, who resides in this back area of the building. It's like a little back room with a closet where he seems to frequent. He is said to be very territorial and doesn't really care for visitors. We looked through records, but we really couldn't find anyone historically that this could specifically be, like, associated with the building. Not to say that he's not there, but we just can't figure out what Anthony he is.
Yeah.
Now, as Lindsay mentioned, some believe that the spirit of Victor Vogel, who we chatted about, is also still working in the building. He is said to watch the workers and keep everything in check. There's this large area where there's kegs and like a big machine, and he is said to frequent this area. And when you walk through it, I will say, even from personal experience, it feels like someone is watching you. And that someone, everyone believes, is Victor.
And originally we were going to mention this a little bit later, but I think that it's worth mentioning now. We're talking about this like brewery compound, for lack of a better phrase, right? Because there's like so many buildings. Amanda has a video that she recorded while she was there so that you can get an idea of the layout. And we're going to talk more about the way everything is laid out in a bit, but just so you know, like that is available. That's up on social media already.
Yeah. And I took that video after we finished the investigation and the lights were on for the most part, as I went around looking for equipment to make sure we didn't leave anything behind. So I went in most of the rooms, but not all. Now, more spirits that could be housed in this area. Some believe that the spirits of the men from the train accident, James and George, are also in the building. And, this breaks my heart, the spirit of the 11-year-old Harry, they believe that he's still there too. We also heard a story that an employee at one point was in the bottling room alone, And all of a sudden, the lights went out and a door slammed. And no one else was in that area. It was just them.
That would scare me. I feel like an unexplained door slam,
Yeah.
I think I would be hoofing it. I think I'd be moving and shaking away from that.
Right? Now, we're just going to go through a few stories that we've heard about the building. Once, an employee was carrying a barrel around 11:30 p.m., so at night. They felt a hand on their back and then a small push. So they thought, another employee was just messing with them. So they quickly turned around to see that no one was there.
No.
It may have been an employee, just not an employee that was on shift that night.
As being a person who's been the recipient of a ghost push, 10 out of 10 would not recommend.
10 out of 10, no. Many employees have seen shadows, especially when they're in the rooms alone. Another story that we heard was that an employee was opening and getting ice for the bar from the ice machine. And the bar is kind of the best way I can describe it up front. And in the ice machine, you have to walk around this big wall of machines and everything before you can turn and go into this other room where the ice machine is. So walking back and forth, it's a decent walk. Well, they were alone, but definitely didn't feel like they were alone. They got the vibe that someone was angrily staring at them and watching them work. Our guess is Mr. Vogel is still taking his job very seriously.
You know how I feel about a ghost employee, but I guess if he was running it, that's different. Maybe you want to be like a bossy ghost. I'm not here to judge.
Maybe, I don't know if his spirit is there rather than his energy replaying what he used to do. Maybe.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, like residual, perhaps. Maybe that's like, I don't know, a station that he worked at to like check on the employees or something.
Yeah, like he was there so much that his energy just kind of imprinted.
Yeah. Now, of course, we've said it's a brewery, but it is a restaurant as well. And this being said, there are those blind spot mirrors in a lot of the corners, high up so you can see if someone's walking so you don't run into each other. Well, when this employee looked up at the mirror that day, they saw a shadow staring at him. They did not want to go back in that area the rest of the day, and they refused to look at the mirrors anymore after that day.
I mean, relatable. I would also feel that way.
Yeah. I will say after hearing that story when I was there, I was constantly checking the mirrors because that is like, I feel like that's one of the scariest ghost encounters.
Oh, yeah. It's also like such a trope.
Like, I know it's a silly trope in a movie, but oh my gosh, just seeing something in a mirror and then it not being there, that freaks me out.
Yeah.
Now, there's this big space kind of in the back, tucked away. I believe it's called the fermentation room. That's what we were calling it. We're not beer scientists by any means, but we were naming the rooms as we made our notes and talked to each other, all the people that went to the investigation. We're going to talk about them soon. So that's what we're going to call it. But there's this space in the back room, and they refer to it as Anthony's space.
Interesting. And it's in this small room, and this is the closet inside that room. That's Anthony's room or Anthony's space. And once during an investigation, someone had an XLS camera. This is the one that shows the little like stick figures. And they set it up directed at the closet. And on the camera, they saw two stick figures kind of jumping up and down. And then one darted at them, which again, the way I would shriek. And the people who, experienced this, they could even feel whatever was coming at them, run at them. And they got intense chills. And from what we heard, everyone there at the time just completely freaked out. Or as the kids say, crashed out. I think that's what they're saying now. I think it's crashed out.
Okay, sure.
And that feels very fair because I would also crash out if a ghost ran at me. So it's possible that they weren't being the friendliest to the ghost, and maybe Anthony didn't like that. But who could say? Immediately after that event happened, the spirit box went off and said leave, and then the person's name.
No, thank you.
Yeah. Later that night, they went back into that area to, face their fear, and the spirit box roasted them and called them names. Wild.
I do love when ghosts roast us, though. As being on the other end of that, it's hilarious.
Yeah. It's one thing when you're like, oh, it's just saying rude things. But if it's like legit making a comment about you, it's like, okay. I mean, I do think that in one of the recordings that Amanda has, there's a slight ghost roast, but we'll get to it in a second. So in the beginning, Amanda mentioned that they do spooky brewery tours during the Halloween season. And we'll have a link to that in our show notes. But during one of those tours, one of the employees was waiting for a group to walk up, and they're standing there waiting. And then they hear their name whispered into their ear. So they like whip around to see who's there. And then there's no one there.
I hate it.
Like, hoofing it. I enjoy investigations, but there's just some things we will not tolerate. And a creepy whisper in my ear, I'm going to need a minute. I'm going to need a minute away from that situation.
Yes. Yes.
So in another instance, while setting up for a tour, they put out a REM pod, and the REM pod ended up going off in the dark. So one of the employees shined a flashlight onto it, and then the REM pod immediately went dead.
That weird?
It is. These feel like gasp moments.
Yeah, and I will say, we'll talk about it more, but some of my equipment did do some strange things while here. And I did have my camera that was supposed to last all night, not last all night.
Those ghosts are hungry. They got to eat.
They need their power. I brought a giant battery, like gigantic battery. They didn't want that. They wanted the small things.
Look, sometimes you go to the grocery store and you buy so many vegetables for yourself, right? But what you want is your little Debbie's. You know what I'm saying? You just want a nice cold zebra cake.
Little Debbie's.
You just want a nice cold zebra cake. You don't want all those vegetables, right?
Not a grilled one?
Not a grilled one, you fucking monsters. Horrifying. I'm horrified by that. But intrigued.
We were asked that question today. I was asked to ask Lindsay her thoughts on a grilled zebra cake.
I think she knew what my thoughts would be. But anyway, let's talk about another opening story. So there was an employee who was doing just some opening tasks, and they looked up just into the office area and they saw a face. So they were like, as any reasonable person would be, just assumed that someone was early for work. But then they realized that there was nobody else there. Like, nobody had came in early. There was not a living human who owned that face.
I don't like it.
What a way to start your day. You're like, okay, who needs coffee when you've got ghosts being like, hello?
I found it interesting that this happens all day, all night. Right? All these stories are taking place at various times.
I like a daytime haunting.
Yeah.
I find that more reputable, honestly. Like a 3 p.m. haunting. What a treat to not have to stay up all night just to see a ghost, I'm a nocturnal person, but come on. Anyway, so we mentioned a cat earlier. Some employees have heard meows when there's no cat present. And then one of the cleaning crew members also had a bit of an odd experience. They were working with a friend cleaning the kitchen one night after everything had closed. And they look up from their work and they see 3 people walk by. And they were like, that's odd. And they thought at first that perhaps it was some of the employees who came back in. And then they went to look to see who it was. And they went into the space where the people had walked. But it was empty. There was no one there. So again, no living person walked into that room.
It seems like, this one, they were working with their friends, so there's another person, right? But they looked up and saw it. But I feel like they single out the employees one by one. We're like, we're going to freak you out today because you're alone in this room.
Today's your day. It's your turn.
Yeah. So now that we've explained all the stories of this place, let's talk about the investigation. This investigation was set up a little differently than our typical ones. There is a spooky article being written by a really cool freelance writer named Zach Odin. And he approached a friend of mine, Nadine from Get Ghosted Phoenix, about doing an investigation. We've talked about Get Ghosted before, and she's also submitted a story on our last Podiversary episode, if that name sounds familiar.
And Get Ghosted is a ghost tour company, yeah?
It is. She recommended a local group called Rogue Investigations. And I've actually done a few investigations with Rogue, and luckily was able to be part of this one as well.
As a note, I was not. I want to specify that early on. I was not there. But I was there in spirit, not really, but you see what I'm saying. I'm still excited to talk about this, but I just wanted to note that.
I tried.
Oh, she tried hard.
We got the date for the investigation when I was in Maryland. And so the first thing I did was turn to Lindsay and be like, you need to come to Arizona. And she was like, it's 100 and something degrees. Was the first response.
That was the first response. And then the other response was that we already had tickets for a professional rugby game and to go see Offspring.
Yeah, fair.
But
I'm going to take her here when she comes out again.
Yes, I'm very excited.
When it's not 100 degrees.
Yes.
But for this investigation, we had a fairly big group, and all of them were kind enough to answer some questions that we had about the investigation. And so that you understand who everyone is, we're going to take some time to introduce them. We asked them a bunch of questions. And one lovely person even sent us some audio files for her answers, so you'll hear a guest voice occasionally.
So Amanda, who is Ashley N?
So we do have 2 Ashleys. Ashley N is the co-founder of Rogue Investigations, which is a husband and wife team who partners with local investigators. From the 2 investigations that I've seen her in action, my words, I think that she has great instincts and very good intuition. I feel like she knows what's happening before she walks in a room, and I love that.
Yeah. And then Ashley, she started Rogue Investigations with her husband, Justin, right?
Yes, correct. So her husband's name is Justin, and he's the other co-founder of Rogue. He has 25 years experience with the paranormal, and he's told us that he's traveled to some of the most haunted locations.
Okay, so then we've got our next Ashley. This is Ashley P.
Yes. And she's a newer investigator, but in my opinion, she is a natural. She approaches investigations with both curiosity and respect, which Lindsay and I have said a million times. We love. That's what you need.
That's the way to go.
But I was with her quite a bit during this investigation.
And then we're going to play Christina's.
Ooh.
Christina. So now we're going to play Christina's introduction. I've said that 6 times and in varying degrees of like strangeness.
Hi, I'm Christina Daggerman, and I like spooky vibes. I love history, the paranormal, and watching true crime and ghost shows. I'm always interested in learning new techniques, staying updated with new devices and methods, and learning best practices from those around me. I've always loved the paranormal, but I've been actively investigating since 2022, and I consider myself to be a skeptical believer. I need to experience something in order to truly believe it. I've had various paranormal experiences in my life, with the most occurring during an investigation at the old Gila jail in Globe, Arizona.
Okay, so tell me about Danielle.
Okay, so Danielle Gonzalez is the owner of the Grateful Koi in Peoria, Arizona. You're going to love this.
You know it.
She's a Reiki master, medium, and intuitive coach who helps people connect with their inner wisdom and to find balance through energy healing and spiritual guidance.
I do love that.
And as a medium, she helps a lot of people. She helps people connect with loved ones and has experience performing property clearings to remove unwanted energy and attachments, which I feel like is such a cool thing to do and to be able to help people with, because that's not something that's easily found.
Yes, yes. So we mentioned her earlier, but will you tell us a little bit more about Nadine?
Yeah, so she's the founder of Get Ghosted Phoenix, which is a super fun tour that I highly recommend. She offers a variety of walking tours and even leads some investigations locally in Arizona now. I just attended one a couple weeks ago. I actually made a video getting ready for it, and it was a great time. She's really good at finding local stories and learning about the spirits to tell her groups, and she does a really good job being very respectful at the same time. But she is very sensitive to energies, and she brings that into the investigations, which is very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And her approach is all about treating spirits with respect. Again, we absolutely love that. That's what we want.
Always. And last but not least, what about Zach?
So Zach is a freelance journalist. We mentioned him. He's the one that set up this whole thing. Thank you again, Zach. We were also super lucky to be able to conduct an interview with him. So we kind of turned the tables here. He's like, let me write an article. And we're like, no, let us put you on this podcast.
Yes, exactly.
And it was great.
I also really like his perspective because he doesn't do a ton of investigations. It's new-ish to him. And I think that having that perspective, like when you're with people who've done it a bunch, is very interesting.
Yes, I loved it. And so we actually recorded an interview with him, and we had planned on breaking it up and putting it throughout the episode when we're asking these questions.
Mm-hmm.
But it really flows well together because, of course, it's Lindsay and I. We went off on some tangents.
You know us.
And so what we're going to do is we're going to put it at the end of the episode. And we have now called it Ghost Chat with Zach. I love it.
It was a fun time.
It was. But he is a freelance journalist and a teacher in Phoenix, which I highly respect. That's a hard job. He writes about food, music, and occasionally spooky stuff. And if you want to check him out, you can find him at the Phoenix New Times. And you can follow him on Instagram at Odin, O-D-E-N, .eats, E-A-T-S. We also had a Four Peaks employee with us throughout the investigation who was phenomenal. Thank you again for showing us around and letting us check out your space.
I do like when you're investigating a space and you have someone who's very used to it as a part of it. I think that that adds just a different level of validation when you're experiencing something. You're like, oh, this is what I sense, what I feel. Here's the activity
Yeah.
we're having. And then they're like, oh, you're one of many.
Yeah. And it was good because they really knew their stuff too. So when we'd ask a question about history or what happened in the area or anything that was going on inside the building, right away knew the answer.
Yeah.
Super helpful.
So before your investigation, what kind of prep work did you guys do?
So we did do a day tour of the space to get a feel for it and to know where to set up the equipment. And we all had various first impressions of the space. And so Lindsay and I asked everyone what their impressions were. Now, it was a huge space, so there's a ton of rooms. We will read and play the initial reactions and then go over each space as we go through the investigation to help paint the picture of what everything looked like, because it's hard to describe and totally understand each room until you see it.
And I'll even say, like, I talked to Amanda a bunch about this. We've chatted so many times, and until I actually saw it, I could not, like, my brain just couldn't conceptualize the space.
Yeah, it's very big. But like Lindsay said, we posted a video after we wrapped up the investigation of just a quick walkthrough of most of the rooms, so you'll be able to kind of get a feel for it. Lindsay also, when I first showed her the video, would pause it and be like, before I even told her what happened during the investigation, before she knew any stories about the place, she'd pause it and be like, what happened here? What's there? And had some input for each of the spaces, which was pretty spot on, surprisingly. It was scary.
Bizarrely spot on. I was like, oh, I get this feeling here. And I was thinking that she'd be like, like, yep, that nothing there, right? It's just a room. Because it wasn't like it was like a spooky looking place. And it was like, I'm pretty sure every single space I was like, here's what I feel. It like kind of matched-ish.
Yeah. And even rooms that I didn't fully go into, we're going to talk about it soon. But like, she'd be like, oh, back there in that room. And I'm like
in this corner,
weirdo,
in this
how?
fucking space. Yeah. Like, and I'm not there. So it's not like I could really like understand it that much. But that was new for me to be able to like look at a space and be like, here, there, and that corner.
It was really good. I was impressed.
Thanks.
Okay. And then just to note, places that we did not go or walk through at all during the daytime or the investigation was the kitchen and one of the barrel aging rooms. So just a heads up, even though there were some stories in the kitchen, we did not go in there.
And that makes sense. If there's one thing you don't want is you don't want people messing around in a kitchen.
Yeah, fair.
It makes sense to not have people hanging out around the knives and the stoves and stuff.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
So before you guys did your investigation, right, you did your visit to kind of get a lay of the land. What were your initial impressions when you were there? And that's one of my favorite things to ask whenever we do an investigation is like, I'll often be there like pen and paper interviewing each person. Like, how do you feel when you get in this room? That's Ghost Lindsay. Because I'm like, it is so hard to stay present and in your body and like aware of what's going on.
Yeah.
So like, I do think that's such an important part of like how you approach investigations is like, what does your gut say when you first get there? Like, what's your literal first thoughts? So what were yours?
Yes. And I need you to look at this. You'd be proud of me. Look what I brought with me to the investigation.
Her Basilosaurus dinosaur notebook. No, Amanda, like,
you sent me this forever ago.
I know. I was like, Amanda, you should, when we were doing our own, I was like, Amanda, you should get a little notebook so you can just write down your thoughts and feelings while we're doing investigations. Because I was like, I want to compare later, right? And she, like, when she was talking about it with me afterwards, she, like, casually mentioned, I was like, she took notes. I was so excited. I'm such a nerd sometimes, all the time.
Usually I have my scribe with me, but she thought it was too hot to be here. So
look, your scribe had to straight melted.
Oh, we did. So my first impression was that it was a very busy place with various energies. Nothing bad though. Like I never got a bad vibe. I got you're not alone vibe quite a bit, but not bad. The first room we hung out in was kind of like this back dining area. And while we were all like getting ready to go on the tour and chatting a bit, and we had like waters and stuff because it was a very hot day. And I just kept watching this like machine in the back and kind of watching the bottom of it. And I'm like, there's something. I don't know what's there, but there's something. But then I found myself mainly looking at the ground and I was like, is it a kid? Like, is something going to crawl at me? What is there?
Mm-hmm. Which 10 out of 10, the worst of a haunting tropes is things crawling at you. I think we can all agree about that.
Yes. And I even turned to one of the girls, I don't even remember who, and I was like, there's something over there. And they're like, probably.
Okay.
But I thought, child, perhaps animal. At this time, though, there was no mention of the ghost cat until later when we were doing the walkthrough. So I was like, oh, it might just be because I can spot like a lost dog or cat anywhere. And now I feel like I can even spot when a ghost dog or cat is nearby.
I mean, fair.
I was proud of myself.
Yeah, you should be.
When we first walked into what's called the bottling room, It's a big open room, and it has a bunch of windows at the front, and then a couple, like a big machine, and it leads into an office area. There's like a big barn door that I want to say is another aging room, but it's a very big space. But as we all walked in, I started getting a headache. And like, I'm not one to really get headaches often. I do sometimes when I'm out, like driving around when it's really hot out. But I had already been here for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought it was kind of weird, but I was like, it's a muggy day. It had rained the night before. So on top of it being hot, it was humid too.
When you say headache, what do you mean?
I don't know how to describe it. It was kind of like, I'm not a headache person. I don't get headaches very often. So it was like,
are you ready? I'm a headache girly. Okay. So where was it on your head?
like kind
Top
of
of your
the
head.
top,
Like crown
top.
of your head?
Yeah.
Okay. Did it feel like a crushing sensation or did it feel like a sharp stabbing? Either of those?
It was kind of like a light, sharp stabbing ever so often.
Would you say that it was concentrated or it felt like prickles?
I'd say it was concentrated because I was like, this
Interesting.
is so weird. And, again, I blamed the heat and the humidity and all of that. And like the place is a little warm, especially in the back. Like there's machines and stuff. But yeah, I found that odd. As we were all standing there, like when you're in a group, you end up chatting and kind of all facing each other. And behind me would have been that room that has the ice machine. And at the time, like we started our tour. And then a little bit later, we were told like they were getting ready for another tour. And so I could hear the people kind of in the background. They weren't loud or anything, but like they were in the other room. Like you could hear it. You knew where they were based off of, the footsteps and everything because it's a big like echoey place. And so as we're all standing there, we're all facing each other and chit-chatting. And I hear footsteps in the room behind us. And I was like, in my head, I'm always like nervous, like, oh no, like maybe they want to come in here and I don't want to like ruin their tour.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of just like look over quickly to be like, oh, are they coming? We need to wrap this up. And no one was there. No one was in that room at all. And I was like, interesting.
You're like, so I'm worried about bothering literally no one.
Well, maybe.
Maybe the
I was
ghosts.
bothering them. Yeah. Hopefully I wasn't. But yeah, no one was in that room, but I for surezies heard footsteps. Now, because I was like, things are already happening. It's midday. I turn on the Necrometer app, which we have talked about in several of our investigation episodes. And I just said, who's here? Because something was definitely there. And immediately it responded Briar. And then later in that room, I got the name Sarah, which did continue during our investigation as well. Now, when we walked out of that room, the headache gone. Didn't feel it anymore.
And if it was something that was environmental or like with your body, who could say why you were having a headache? But I would just point out that I typically do not experience headaches that only last a certain space.
Yes.
That are purely medical in origin.
Right. So bizarre. Who could know what that was about? Another room that we walked through was one of the barrel aging rooms. And I particularly liked this room because it was very cold. It was like a refrigerated room. I loved it. But I felt like someone else was there outside of our group. Now, we did have, like I explained, how many people. There's a ton of people. And we were all asking questions and talking about the space and everything. So I'm like, it was a little overwhelming to begin with. But you just didn't feel like we were the only people in the room.
And I do feel like you can generally get a sense for when you're not by yourself.
Yes.
Like, even if you don't believe in everything else, you can kind of tell when you're not alone, right?
Agreed. And then when we walked into Anthony's room, we had been told that he was territorial. We didn't really know much about him other than he's territorial. He doesn't really like visitors. And as soon as I walked in, I really didn't feel any like scary or bad vibes at all. But the impression that I got from it was like, he's a particular old man. Like the neighbor that wants everything exactly their way or the rules. They'll call you out like if your trash can's left out like an hour later than it should.
Dude, I have a neighbor who her like pastime is reporting people for code violations.
Yes, that's what I feel like. That's him in my sense.
The same person wanted me to close down a street because we had a yard sale, like a major road. It's the road that the fire station's on. They're not going to close that. Sorry, please continue.
But yes, like that energy is what I got. It wasn't bad. It was just particular. And I got the impression that he was just over constant visitors. And because a lot of them probably aren't respectful to him in his space. And I just think of like, everyone has one, right? Like an older neighbor down the street. If you were to barge in and annoy them all the time, they would not be so kind to you.
I would also point out, too, that the way that people interact in the world now and in spaces as very comfortable is very different than previous generations would have. So, like, I feel like it's a very, kids today, like, kind of vibe.
Exactly. Yeah, I wrote down, like, "Get off my lawn," like,
Mhm.
energy. But not mean, just like, "Please leave me alone," energy. So my thought was, okay, I need to be extra respectful, like, super respectful. I need to ask permission to enter. I need to show all of my manners while in this room, and then also show him some extra kindness because he needs it.
Yeah, I like that.
And seriously, no bad vibes. Others have gotten bad vibes there. I will say, just because we're here, our not so favorite Zach Baggins went here for Ghost Adventures. And he was particularly weird on that episode. I did watch it the night before I went just to get the vibe of what they felt. And yeah, they named it Terror in Tempe, and it was from I think
Okay.
2023. But he was just like extra annoying in this episode. If you watch it, you'll see why. But I feel like he wasn't respectful to the space either.
As he often is not.
Right, right. Lastly, very, very strange. But at one point, as we were going through, I just kept looking up because, like, it's a high ceiling, very high. It has, like, windows up there. And one of the questions I asked when I was there was that ever, like, a walkway? I don't know why there'd be a walkway up there. Maybe, like, to watch production? I don't know. But was that a walkway? Like, because I feel like something is up there. Like, what's happened up there?
Mm-hmm.
And we were told not in any records or to their knowledge that there had ever been a walkway, but like years ago, I don't know if it was before they were there or what year specifically, some silly teenage kids would like shoot the windows out sometimes. And that was like the only knowledge they had of like up there and what may have happened. But I for sure felt like someone or something is up there.
And so I'm going to talk about my like initial impressions in each space when we get to the investigation that Amanda was on. But right here, I do feel like I need to tell you one part, which is when I was looking at the video, because mind you, Amanda and I hadn't had the conversation. I did not know what she just said. And I was like, I just get I was like, when you look up, there's like rafters, right? Where you can
Mhm.
see like bars. And I was like, I have the distinct impression that there's just like the energy of a young girl just like doing gymnastics and flipping about. And like, it's this positive moving energy. And I don't know how to describe it. I've never had something like such a specific image in my head, but like the distinct impression that this was not something that was on a loop. This was not something that was happening. This was not like the cause of death. This is simply like a little ghost girl flipping about and having like a fun little time because why not? In the same space where Amanda was like, there's people up there. There's something up there.
No, and that was crazy because I didn't get home till I think it was like 6 a.m. So Lindsay was up already at work, so she didn't even see anything I sent her. And all I said was like,
Mm-mm.
it was such a cool investigation. Here's a video so you know where I was, like, so you could look at it.
Mhm.
And then when we talked, she's like, here, 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 here. And I'm like, oh, there's no notes that she could see yet. Like, it's all
Yeah.
in my notebook. Like, there's no way she could have known that.
Mm-hmm. Accurate. So we're going to talk a bit about the other investigators' first impressions. So Ashley N said that she didn't experience anything right off the bat, except she had like a feeling of sickness when they got further into the walkthrough. And then I'm going to just read what Justin said. So he said, initial thoughts were there was a weird stillness about the brewery, almost like time has stopped type feeling. In the back of the restaurant, down by the vats, where the brewery employee was talking to us, I saw a shadow figure dart behind the vat. There was a portion in the brewery between the main hallway and the fermentation room that felt like you were walking through a fog when you entered, and that room felt the heaviest. Anthony's room was a highlight for me, but I think he just wanted to be heard and talked to. Nothing more, nothing less. Then Ashley P., she wasn't there during the original walkthrough, so we'll include her impressions during the investigation. And then we're going to play Christina's impressions right now.
The building was really interesting to walk through during the initial meet and greet. Each space kind of felt like it was really its own space. In the main area where we were sitting, I thought I kept seeing shadows of something small darting around behind the silos, behind the barrels. And later, come to find out, there is reports of there being a ghost kitty, and they hear meows throughout the building. The energy was interesting in the barrel aging room. I can't remember what it was specifically. Maybe feeling being watched. Maybe a presence of a little girl watching from the corner behind one of the barrels. But I don't really remember exactly what it was at this moment. Moving on to the next room, I felt a slight scratch pinprick on my shoulder, which oddly enough would be revealed moments later that Aaron from Ghost Adventures was scratched in the same area. The energy felt different moving into room 20, which is the fermentation area adjacent to Anthony's room. Like it just felt busy. My initial impression of Anthony was and continues to be he has been falsely portrayed as a negative spirit wishing to do harm, when in fact he's someone who used to be an authority, like a manager or an owner, someone who does lots of paperwork and is just busy and doesn't appreciate being bothered or having his time wasted or disrespected. I don't have any factual information on that, but that's just my impression of him. It seems like investigators come in with this preconceived notion that they need to confront him and put him in his place, when in fact they're being incredibly disrespectful, coming into Anthony's space and being a bully. These investigators don't work there, they don't live there, and they're just trying to get a reaction and move on. And I think it's really bad etiquette, bad practice as an investigator to just be aggressive to invoke a reaction. The last room that we walked into was the bottling room, and it felt like it may have some residual energy lingering, like busy work, like it was just busy putting things, packing bottles or packing things and getting it ready for distribution.
And then Danielle said, during the first walkthrough of Four Peaks, I immediately got a headache and felt like there was a lot of masculine energy connected to the trauma and injury in that area. The spot that had the most drastic change in energy during the walkthrough was the central room with the dock. The energy here made me feel extremely dizzy and heavy at the same time. This feeling immediately resolved when entering the rear brewery room. Then Nadine said, the barrel room definitely stood out. I felt a heavy, distinct energy right away. Anthony's presence was strong. You could tell it was his space. But it wasn't just heavy. There was a playful side too, almost like he enjoyed telling his story and joking around with us. And we don't want to leave Zach out, but again, we're going to have our full interview with him at the end of the episode, so stick around for that. And then so we've covered Amanda and the other investigators' original and initial impressions. So how did the investigation go?
So because it was such a large space, what we decided to do was break into groups so that we could cover more rooms at once, which had great results, but also everything echoes.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the time when I was like listening back through audio and things, you could hear the other group doing things.
Oh, interesting.
Which was a little hard to like differentiate what might be spooky and what might be the other group. But we did get to cover more ground this way. So we're going to start out in the bar seating area. We didn't spend too much time there during either day, but employees have seen shadows and sometimes people when they're alone. We sort of used it for like a home base, and we set up a table with all of our equipment there. So like we go back and forth here and there. So we were there throughout the night, but not necessarily investigating.
And you mentioned your equipment. It's pretty much the same as we've talked about in every other episode, but you do have one addition, correct?
Yes. So remember how I mentioned the night before we watched the Ghost Adventures episode? Well, hilarious. But for the first time ever, my husband watched a spooky show with me.
It's about damn time, Michael.
About damn time. But as we're watching it, he's like, why is he wearing an Xbox camera? I'm like, what are you talking about? That's an SLS camera.
I love that you also made yourself have like a weird little voice when you're talking. Like, what are you talking about?
But he was like, why would he do that? And I'm like, no, that is this. And I'm like explaining to him what it is. And he's like,
yeah,
no, that's an Xbox camera that they probably modded to be able to be portable. That's why he's wearing the backpack and holding all of this. He's like, you don't have one of those? And I was like, no, I want one. I have one on my list.
Yeah.
But it's also like a big piece of equipment. He's like,
Mhm.
oh, I'll build you one tomorrow.
Oh, okay. I'll just build one real quick. No worries. No big.
Yeah. And he's like, but I'm not going to do it the way Stupid Ghost Adventures did it. I'm going to put it on a portable cart where you don't have to carry around a big battery and look like him. And I'm like, yes, please.
You're like, I love what you're saying right now.
So what we had for this investigation was an SLS Connect camera, is what it's called. And the Connect is hooked up to a laptop, and it projects stick figure skeletons using infrared light. I will note that it can give false positives, especially if you use it in a room full of stuff. Because when it's projecting, sometimes it'll project a stick figure onto an item, But typically it's pretty easy to differentiate a real versus like a false positive, because when it's a false positive, it's typically the stick figure staying in one place and moving, but never moving around. Like it's stuck to an item.
That makes sense.
I will say one of the areas near Anthony's room, when I came back to the camera, because we had walked away and came back, there was a dancing stick figure. And I quickly figured out, oh, it's on a big piece of equipment that it was stuck on. It's not anything. So
Makes sense.
it was kind of fun to have a new piece of equipment, though. Now, we spent, my group at least, a lot of time in the bottling room because that's where we had the most like pull. And the group that I was paired with was Christina and Ashley P. And towards the end of the investigation, though, we all kind of met up as a big, larger group. But yeah, we were in the bottling room for most of our time.
So again, Amanda sends this video. No context of like what she's experienced where. And in this particular room, the vibe I got while watching this video was just this energy of like, wait, don't leave. Very like specifically, like when you're like at a friend's house, I'm like, no, stay for a little while longer. It was just that specifically. And I didn't realize that Amanda had taken the video at the end of the night.
Yeah.
My impression was that she took it in the beginning of the night. So I didn't know that she was leaving when I had the impression that whatever it was like, wait, don't leave. I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah. And like I said, we were pulled into this area. At least I was. I wanted to stay in that area a lot of the night.
Fair.
And when we finally did do another room and we left that area, we even like asked. And it did want us to go to the next area, but like I did want to stay there. Like I wanted to explore more. But while we were in there, we got a ton of names, including the name Sarah again, which was interesting because we had gotten it before when we did the walkthrough. We did have a dead bell that went off a decent amount. The Polter tune, or the music box, went off a few times. And my dot projector did something I've never seen it do before. And it started blinking. I did take my phone out and take a video when it started because I had a stationary camera faced towards where we were doing EVP sessions. Not at that, but I took my camera out so I can post a video of it. But it started flashing and the battery was fine. It worked just fine after. And it was just for a short time that it was flashing.
How weird.
Very weird. I've never seen that happen before. And I've used that a lot. Even with you, you've never seen it.
Yeah, never.
Also, we got some fun responses from some of the spirit boxes as well. And I'm going to play a few clips from my voice recorder because I did capture a lot of this. At one point, it was just us three. So Christina, Ashley P, and myself. And two of the guys walked into the room wearing hats, but it's super dark. It's hard to see who's coming like around the corner until you like stand up or like call for them. And immediately we hear the footsteps of them coming. We can hear them kind of chit-chatting. And the spirit box says, "Nice hat." And we like call out, we're like, "Which one of you is wearing a hat?" And they're like, "We both are." Apparently the spirit loved their hat, but I'll play that clip here. But if you ring the bell, we can start using that to communicate too. Okay.
Nice hat.
Thank you. It's a nice hat. Who just walked in with a hat? Both of you, right?
Who's wearing a hat? They like your hat.
I am. We both are.
Yeah, I thought both of you were. Also, someone really liked our shoes too. Lindsay thinks otherwise, but I feel like they liked it. There's a lot of talking going on at this part of my recording. So like all of us are talking amongst ourselves when this happened. But the spirit box said, "Nice shoes." And me and the employee from Four Peaks looked down and we're both wearing the exact same shoes. And we had noticed that all night. Like, I don't know. I don't really look at anyone's shoes. But I'm like, oh, are we twinsies? I think that they liked our shoes, but Lindsay has something else to say about it.
I feel like they were like, "Nice shoes, nerd." Like that's what my head was. That it was just a light roasting, not like overtly mean. Just like, "Nice shoes, y'all just like matching. You call each other up.
We coordinated.
Chat first, yeah."
But I'm gonna play that clip. Just know that there was a lot of talking at the beginning.
Nice shoes.
Traveling last time,
You're
maybe
doing really
they
well.
like to hear nice shoes. Whose shoes? Are we twinsies? I think
We are. Yeah, we are fans.
Oh,
twinsies.
cute.
Did it say nice shoes?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
We match.
You have fans too. Unaware that we have fans around.
Yeah. Now, we started in that room. We did a few little other areas. We did Anthony's room. We came back into the bottling room. And then the last space we went up to was an office space. Well, when we were talking about going into the other room, the last room, we asked to ring the bell if you want us to go. And it immediately rang, and it hadn't rung in a while per my recording, so I thought that was interesting, and I'll play that clip too.
So if you think we should go check out the upstairs room, can you touch the bell? Okay.
All right.
All right, on our way. We're going to pack it up. All right. Okay.
All right.
We're going.
We're going. Yay.
And then just to note, because we didn't mention it earlier, when we did the initial walkthrough of the space, the bottling room, that's where I got my headache. Justin had mentioned to us that day that he kept seeing a shadow figure in the hallway that led to the office area. So that's where we walked through to go to the office right after that last clip. So there's this other area that I wish we would have had more time to explore, but like, it just feels like it went so fast, even though it was an overnight investigation.
It always does, though, doesn't it?
It did. Like, I looked at the clock and I'm like, oh my gosh, how is it already 3 a.m.? But the grain storage room was very interesting as well. My group didn't spend a lot of time in the area, but it did feel like something was like in the corner of it watching. Every time I had to walk through there, I feel like I would walk a little quicker, like, oh, I just need to go get equipment. I'll be right back. And like, not look around too much, because especially when you're alone and you're like, is somebody going to run at me? Please don't run at me. Like, if you want to be seen, sure, but do not run at me. Not that that's happened in that area.
Like, I would love to perceive you, but just don't skitter at me. I don't need that.
Yeah, that's never happened. There's no reason why that was in my head, but I just felt like something was in the corner and it was going to like step out. Another room that we did explore a bit was the fermentation room. And this is a big room. And then at the end of the room is where like Anthony's little space is.
Yes. And so in the video, if you haven't watched it already, maybe you pause now and you go watch it. But what you'll see is that like you see these two large silver things meant for brewing beer, undoubtedly. And in between them, there's a dark room. And it does naturally draw the eye. But when I tell you, I just felt like this pull, like this, just like, come here, come look. It just felt like such a focal point, which is very bizarre. And because like also like, again, Amanda in the video isn't like panning over, zooming in, like, don't you want to look at this room? She's just panning by. And it was another situation where I had to try to pause it several times to like get to the exact spot where I was like, that's where I feel it. And it's not very big, it's tiny, and it's just a blip in the video.
Yeah.
It's so
and that's
weird.
interesting because that is Anthony's space.
Mm-hmm.
So the other group did have a lot more go on in here, and we will play their clips at the end because we did ask what was the most active space and like what experiences did you have. We're going to talk about their notes after our initial discussions of each room. So when I decided to go and investigate a bit that night, I was with Ashley P at that moment, and we made it a point to knock before we entered. So we knocked on the room before even the closet room and asked, we're like, hey, can we come over for a bit?
Mm-hmm.
In this room, we did have the Polter tune go off in the small closet area after we had left. So like we left the room, my camera was recording, and I immediately flipped back around and I'm like, of course, when I'm not recording with my phone, now it goes off, but you can hear it. You just can't see it.
Fair.
And to note, we went in there after the other group had already wrapped up their investigation in that room. And I got the sense that Anthony was just done peopling for the day, which I can't blame him.
Yeah.
Not that anyone was rude or bad to him that night, but when people come to your house and then another guest wants to come over, I get
You're
it.
like, come on.
Yeah. So like he wasn't so active for us. We did get the Polter tune to go off. We got a few responses here and there from the spirit box, but ultimately there wasn't a lot going on in there other than like the feeling that he was there.
Yeah. Fair.
Now, as we were leaving, that's when I said like the SLS camera can have a false positive. And as we were leaving that room, that's when I noticed that it was kind of going off, but it was just equipment setting it off. It wasn't anything. So another room that we didn't so much investigate, but we did walk back and forth through several times was the keg room. Is what we're going to call it because there's a long line of kegs. This is where it feels like someone is watching you. And a lot of people believe that it's Mr. Vogel. And this room, I may have said it was in the ice machine room earlier and I may have misspoke, but it's a room right before the ice machine room. But there's not like a door. It's just a big open walkway. So it's not completely a separate room. They are connected, but there's a very big open walkway between the two rooms. But anyways, there's a big machine that probably does something. I don't know what it does. And a bunch of kegs in this room. And near the machine, there's like a sticker wall there. Super cute. I love it. But I feel like someone is standing there at all times just watching you.
I don't like that at all. And I was watching the video and sometimes I'm just like an upset tummy gal, you know? So I'm watching the video. It starts off in this area, and I immediately just felt nauseous, like sick to my stomach. And I was like, maybe something's just not sitting with me right, you know? Video goes on, leaves the room, and it kind of goes away, right? And I'm like, maybe I was just nauseous for a second. So then I restart the video, same feeling. Like, I didn't even clock that I felt nauseous because of that at first, because I was like, that's weird. Why would I feel nauseous? But then it happened a few times, and I was like, oh, wait, it's when I'm looking at this thing on the video. So weird. Very weird.
So weird. Yeah. Super strange. And I mean, every time I walked by, because I'd have to walk with my back towards that sticker wall to go get equipment, and I just felt like something staring, just like eyes not blinking, staring at me as I walked by. And it was very unsettling because it was like piercing, but we didn't really do much in that room because we were in that bottling room so much. But something's in there watching for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned kind of the bar seating area. That's where our home base was. But that's also connected to like this little walkway and like bathroom area. So when we went into the bathrooms, we were going in pairs because it just felt like someone was going to be in that area when you turned or like when you came out of the bathroom. So we just took turns and like we were the ones waiting outside the bathroom instead of something else being there.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Now, I had mentioned that there's this like barrel aging room and it's cold. The others got to do a lot more investigating in that space as well. We walked through there a couple times, but we didn't get a chance to actually spend a lot of time in there. I wish I did, though.
I feel like that's probably one of the hardest things is trying to get everywhere.
Right. It's hard. It's hard to like divide your time the right way.
Yes, and I just want to like stress that I'm sure when they do their ghost tour, like they make it spookier, but it doesn't look like a scary place. It doesn't look
No.
like a place where you'd be afraid of. It just looks like a brewery. It doesn't look like when we say like, oh, it was built a long time ago. We're not saying like it was built a long time ago and it's an old creepy building. We're just like, here's the history of it. And the reason I say that is because when you watch the video, if you haven't already, it's not a place that you're immediately like, oh, I'd be scared of a ghost there, or I'd feel a ghost there, right? It's not that at all. So in the video, it's like from Amanda's perspective, right? So she's like facing the plastic curtain. And I was like, to the left of that, in the corner, there's something there. Weird.
Yeah. And that's exactly where they had pointed out during our tour that sometimes the little girl is in that corner. So I thought it was interesting that Lindsay, like, just from the video, was like, something's there. The last place that we investigated, and this was probably the most active place in our investigation outside of the bottling room, was the upstairs office. And at the beginning of the night, we had actually walked around a little bit. We had already done a walkthrough before, but we hadn't gone in that area because it is a working office. We don't want to interrupt or, all of that. But at night, no one was in there. So we were able to walk through a bit. But Ashley P., when we went there, she immediately looked up at the stairs and was like freaked out. And we're going to read her thoughts and play her audio from my recording. But what she saw up there was unsettling.
What did you see?
Something at the top of the step, but it was little. So I don't know if it was like an animal. It almost kind of looked like a reddish or a white cat could have been, or someone crawling like on the floor and just like a hand reach out and like whatever it wasn't a person standing. It was small. It was like either crawling, like a quick.
The thought of something crawling is not my
like
vibe.
a crab, like someone's hand or someone like peeking like that. Like it was short. It was low to the ground and it was super fast. Like it like peeked out. I looked at it. It was like we made eye contact, and then it was like, boom.
And then we walked up here.
The feeling was took my breath away. Freaked me, like instant chills. Not good, not a good feeling, not a happy feeling.
And then we came up the stairs, and all of us, as we walked in here, like, I know it was warm in here, but it felt like just like heavy and like, why are you here type energy.
Yeah. It felt like it was hiding up here, and we found it. And it was like, fuck you, man. Like
you're not supposed to be in here.
Don't mess with me.
So don't mess with me.
We don't want to mess with you. We just want to learn about you.
Yeah, and I don't know if anyone else felt a bit. It definitely felt like there was like a wall of energy or something like pushing out.
And so immediately, as one does, we run up there to be like, what's up there? And can I tell you, when you walk into that room that first time at night, it was insanely heavy feeling. Like it just felt not great. I'm not going to say bad or like scary, just not a great feeling.
Mm-hmm. foreboding, one might say.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, I even remarked that it felt like a big room of anxiety. We all had kind of anxiety being up there. And I mean, she had just seen something weird. So, yeah, maybe it was that. But when we left and then came back up at the end of the night to investigate it, it was a whole different room. It was light. It was interesting. It wasn't heavy and like unsettling. It was like a room with a lot of energy, but not anxiety energy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just different.
Yeah. So while we were up there, we did do several Estes sessions.
And so if you aren't familiar with Estes, basically the idea is that when you are listening to a spirit box, right, you're asking questions and you're hearing it flip through radio stations very quickly. Think about like how Bumblebee talks. It's kind of like that.
Yep.
And it'll piece together bits of words. But what's so strange about it is that it will do it at varying speeds. And you will pick up not just like the sound of a word, but the tone. You'll even hear differences in volume. And then you can also, depending on the headphones that you're wearing, sometimes you can hear it like behind you.
Yes.
So if you're sitting with a spirit box and you're asking it questions, you're inherently biased to get a response. But you want a response, which is why you're asking it a question. And what Estes does is it kind of takes away that bias, because the way it should work is that the person who is asking the questions is not the listener. The listener has noise canceling headphones on and their vision is obscured, so they can't like read lips or anything. And some people will even have you in like different spaces so that it's like truly like impossible to know. And the idea is that the person who's listening is repeating what they're hearing. I always try to do it in the same tone that I'm hearing it. So it's like clear the communication so that the person who is hearing what I'm saying knows if there's like an angry response to a question, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And so it takes out that bias. So it's just like you are just a conduit for answers.
Yes.
I'm just a little nerd for it. I love it.
So we did a few Estes sessions up there. I actually wore the headphones twice and Ashley did it once. And towards the end of the night, while we were up there, gathered around this like meeting table, like we were having an official ghost meeting, the rest of the group did join us. And we did the final Estes session where I was wearing the headphones again. Now, there were several clips that I found interesting once reviewing the recording because I had the headphones on. I had no idea what was going on or what questions they were asking. So it was really cool to hear what I was saying versus what they were saying.
Yeah, I do like that.
The first time we did it, I actually sat on the floor and had my back to the table so I couldn't see or, you know, whatever was happening. And I did close my eyes just so I could like zone in on what I was hearing. And I felt like something had come up behind me. And I took them off and turned around thinking that they were like, hey, it's time to go or something was happening.
Yeah.
No one had gotten up. And I was like, oh, but it was fine. It was fine. The second time I asked that I bring a chair over there so that nothing could come to my back because I didn't want my back to be open because it was unsettling. Also, one of the employees got touched. And I will say that there's no way of acting his face when he got touched. Like he was,
yeah, like he would be off doing that.
Yes.
If he was that good at acting, that's probably what he would be doing for a living because it was that genuine. Yeah, I also just feel like there's just some things you can't fake.
Yes, that was genuine.
Mm.
Also, one of the people in the room, when the spirit box was going, it said the name Mo. And we're like, does a Mo work here? Who's Mo?
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, that is my family nickname. No one knows that. That's what they call me. And no one else in this world calls me that. There's no way anyone here would know that. And I was like, interesting. So there's a few really cool experiences in this office.
Yeah.
But I'm going to play a couple clips from our session up there so that you guys can hear too. This is from a voice recorder that I had on the table. And I will say, interestingly, I was using the Necrometer app and a few of the other people at the table were using their apps as well. And someone else that was using an app, mine would go off and then, I don't know, 30 seconds later, theirs would go off with something very similar to mine.
And they're on airplane mode, correct?
Yeah, mine was for sure. She's on airplane mode. There's no way.
Yeah, they're not talking to one another.
Yes. And so it was really fun when I was doing the SC session, when I, had the headphones on, I gave them my phone so that they could see how it would go back and forth. I feel like there are multiple people that we were talking to in that office. Towards the end, too, I was getting a lot of Spanish responses. And I understand some Spanish. I understood a couple of the words, but I didn't want to say it wrong or like anything like that. But There were a few Spanish responses as well.
Fair. I would be caught off guard, I think, by a different language, which there's no reason to be. I think I would just be surprised. And I'd be like, my brain can't process this fast enough to actually say it.
Yes, and not only did I get the different languages, I got male and female voices. I got some inflection. I've got different ways of speaking. Like some spoke faster than others. Some like said words differently. And I tried to say it the exact same way. And if I didn't fully understand a sentence or something, I made sure to say it out loud as well. So now we're going to play a couple clips from The Office. The first couple are before the SD sessions. And then I think you'll see the difference between when we were doing the actual sessions themselves.
Others have joined the circle.
Okay then. Our circle?
Hello. You're welcome.
Our table meeting?
Mo.
Mo? M-O-E?
Who's Mo? I'm just curious. That's my family nickname that like nobody knows.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and no one at work knows that.
That's just what your family calls you?
My whole family calls me Mo.
That's funny.
So I was like,
So it's Zach and
Calling
Mo.
you
It's
out,
like,
Zach
I know
and Mo.
you.
With the nice hats.
Yeah, the nice hats. And
Nice
shoes.
apparently. So it was interesting though, because your phone just said what the day they became the children were playing.
Yeah.
The children play games. The little girl likes you, yeah.
The children play games, and right after that, I got the day I became one.
Oh.
So I'm wondering if that's Harry saying we were playing games, and that's when I became a ghost.
Oh. The day I became.
I just got 11. He was 11 when he passed, right?
Yeah, I just got chills.
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
it might be
I
him.
feel like
Are you hearing
I
me?
like could cry all of a sudden.
Are you touching people?
I am.
Oh.
Experiment.
It's an experiment. you
Okay.
said.
7-3.
Well, I felt you. We're feeling
Me.
you. Jack, how old are you?
34.
Whoa. Were they sick with tuberculosis with consumption?
We were.
Oh.
We were.
We're talking words.
Sure
I
are.
think.
Yeah. You're
And
doing
you're
great.
something.
What year did you
More
die?
understanding.
Your mom.
Roman.
Roman.
Hello. Instead of like that. Hello. Here. I'm here.
Where?
There. Over there.
Over where?
We know you're
I'm
there.
standing there.
I got Unseen and
Did you
Harold
ring the
back
bell?
to back.
My job's here.
What is...
You work here?
Are you Mr. Bogle?
Yes.
So now let's review some of the feedback that we got from the other investigators.
So we asked everyone that went about what they thought the most active area was and any experiences that they had during the investigation. And so they shared them with us.
Yes. So Ashley N said, in the back room, I was using the dowsing rods and had asked if Anthony was a spirit's name, and it said no. Then I felt a cold gust of wind, waist high, and then 2 hands on my thighs. I tried to move and couldn't. This has never happened to me on any investigation. Justin had to move me. During our time at the ramp, Danielle was asking some questions, and right after one of the questions was asked, Justin, Danielle, and myself all saw some white figure pass by the camera.
I did ask them, so do you have that on camera? And they said no. They saw it, but the camera didn't pick it up, which I thought was interesting.
Weird. Yeah.
But that was kind of the other group. So it was us 3, and then Ashley N, Justin, and Danielle. And then the Four Peaks employee was kind of, watching over everyone back and forth. And then Zach was also kind of floating and visiting both groups.
Makes sense. And I'm going to read Justin's response as well. Personally, I thought that the most active spot was in the office upstairs, as there was a shadow figure who was hiding at the bottom of the stairs. There was a certain instance where I saw the shadow figure. It went behind the corner, and then one of the devices said shadow. Zach and I both heard it and just looked at each other. The REM pod was also going off when no one was near it. I believe this is the most active spot because I believe this is the most secluded spot, and it also felt like some of the spirits were curious as to what we were doing there. I wanted to either be heard or at the very least be known that they are there. Danielle, Ashley, and myself were looking at the ramp near the ice machine, and Danielle was asking some sort of questions. And as soon as she asked, all 3 of us saw some sort of white figure come into the camera. So again, Ashley had mentioned that just a moment ago.
Yeah.
In the barrel room, it felt like a little child was just watching me and was staring at me. I would say the shadow figure I saw multiple times was no bigger than an 8-year-old kid. It kept crossing where the curtains were, almost like pacing, waiting to be asked a question or something. At the ramp where the ice machine is located, it felt like I was off balance and not able to stand straight. Once off the ramp, I felt fine.
And then for Ashley P., remember, she didn't go to the initial walkthrough. So her first walkthrough was night of.
Was live, baby.
Live.
Things were happening.
So she said, my initial feeling at Four Peaks was excitement. I was the only investigator that was not at the recon, so I had no prior walkthrough. My impatience got the best of me early on, and I ventured solo into the dark keg room. It was not very far in when I felt like I was being watched, unwanted and fearful. I did a U-turn rather quickly back to the setup table where everyone was. The energy felt active to me immediately. They knew that we were there and we were ready. But she said my most shocking occurrence took place in the barrel aging room, looking up at the top of the office steps. To this day, I'm still not entirely sure what or who I saw, but it was low to the ground and had 2 eyes. I initially thought it was the ghost cat rumored to roam the brewery, but it's hard to say for sure, considering the adrenaline pumping through me and being paralyzed in fear for what I could assume was maybe 30 seconds. I just know that we locked eyes and every hair on my body was standing up. I wanted to scream, but I was literally frozen stiff. I do want to clarify that I did not feel anything negative or evil, just curious. It was just the shock and so unnatural for me to physically see something there that my fight or flight kicked in naturally.
Fair.
Right, absolutely fair. And she makes it sound like she made a spectacle and was frozen. She was the coolest, fearful person I've ever experienced.
Just completely oh, something is occurring.
Kind of, yeah.
Just very deadpan.
Because she looked at us, she's like, I just saw this. And she quickly, we weren't set up or anything. I was setting up actually the trail cam to face the stairs at that time. It did not catch it, but I was setting it up and I actually had put it facing the stairs. But anyways, and her eyes are wide, but she's she didn't freak out. She didn't scream. She didn't feed it. She was just there's something there.
I'm here to report on this.
Yeah, she was so good about it. I love it. Yeah. This is the only time I've had this type of experience. Now that time has passed and I've replayed my experience over and over, I think it was either a spirit animal or a person that was low to the ground and peeking out at me with just their face.
Hard pass. Either way.
Having the rest of their body behind the wall. Just the thought of a crawly ghost, mm-mm.
But also very funny because you're this is going to scare someone. This is going to be funny.
Oh, yeah. It all happened faster than my brain could process. I would add that emotion and energy control is important to me in life and in investigations. That being said, investigations can get emotional. I'm an empath to start, and it can be draining on the human body. Also, I felt it was imperative to reset myself as best as I could to remain natural for an honest investigation. See, she's a pro already. That's not easy to do after such excitement. And yeah, that's pro investigator status if I ever heard one.
Absolutely. To be able to not freak the fuck out.
So now we're going to play Christina's audio about her experiences that night.
I was overheating a lot and felt I couldn't really get the best investigative experience as I was hoping for throughout the night. There were rooms I would have liked to have spent more time in, but it just didn't work out. That being said, I think the rooms that I did spend time in did feel active. The bottling room seemed to yield intelligent responses, whether it was via cat balls, the dead bell, Holter tune, spirit box, or through apps. I was using the Spirit Talker app, and I believe Ashley P was using the Necromancer app. And I think we also might have gotten some responses, or at least we had some weird happenings with the laser grid. The laser grid dots at one point began flickering, and it was in a way that I was not familiar with, nor was Amanda had ever seen or experienced it before. And it was just really odd. It felt like it was paranormal. Could be wishful thinking, but it had a weird vibe. It could be the batteries were draining and it was just kind of flickering for dear life, but the vibe still felt like it was something possibly paranormal. I don't know if it was the heat affecting me, but at times it appeared like there was something against the back wall where the laser grid was. Even though it wasn't disrupting the light pattern, it still seemed like there was just something moving back there against the wall. On my app, the Spirit Talker, I received the name Joe and Josephine, and it felt like it was a little girl that was experienced by the staff. I get the sense that she's around 9 years old, blonde hair, maybe mid upper class, early 1900s Edwardian period. I don't really see her wearing like traditional factory work clothes. It just seems like she's wearing something a little bit nicer. So maybe she was the daughter, relative, niece of somebody kind of important that worked at that building. So I got that name on the Spirit Talker app. And then later on, after reviewing some of the footage in the nearby office called the TP meeting office, which is on the second floor, I believe I captured a little girl giggling and saying hi. And then later getting another EVP with the name Josephine in a woman's voice. And then third, in a more stern woman's voice, kind of like when a mother has had enough of their child being annoying and is exasperated, just at their wits' end. So that voice came in and it sounded like they were saying, "Okay, Josephine." I don't know, I get this sense that the little girl was there and she was interacting with us. So that upstairs office definitely seemed to be very active. There were other EVPs and some tapping sounds occurring in the room without anyone present. When we did gather up to wrap up the night with an SD session, we seemed to be getting intelligent responses as well from multiple devices. Amanda was the transmitter, so she was the person with the headphones listening to the spirit box and relaying what was coming across, while the rest of our group, Ashley, Zach, and a staff member, and myself, we were asking questions. We received responses from Amanda as well as from multiple devices, our apps, Spirit Talker, Necromancer, the devices, Dead Bell, Culture Tune, Music Box. And it was really exciting to see that when we would ask a question, we could see these different forms of communication being utilized at the same time to answer the same question. So we might ask, I don't know, I don't remember the questions, but we might ask a question and the Polter tune might go off. And then we would get a response on the Spirit Talker app and then also on the Necromancer app. And it was just really cool. I haven't had an investigation yet to be able to use multiple devices like this at one time. And then to also be getting responses through the spirit box from Amanda. It just seemed like at that moment we had a really good rhythm and everything was just in sync for us to have that experience. And it was really pretty cool.
I'm glad that she brought up the dots projector too, because that was very bizarre and I kind of spaced it until I went back and looked at the videos. And then also, yeah, with all the equipment going off and, I had the headphones on. So getting to replay all of that was interesting. Like hearing the responses from all the various equipment that we had. It was great because Christina has a ton of equipment too. So it was just awesome. We all investigated as a group, like in the best way. I loved it. And then what Danielle sent to us was, so during the investigation, the walkway into the brewing area stood out the most. And she had felt a sudden shift in energy in that area. And at the same time, she said that the reporter also did. Like they both felt it at the same time. I began to feel sick in the area, like I was suffering from some kind of illness or severe flu that had symptoms like chills, fever, stomach issues, and muscle aches and dehydration.
That's intense.
Right? I don't want to feel that on an investigation. She's like a trooper. I felt that whoever had suffered these symptoms in the area was male. I remembered seeing the episode of Ghost Adventures a long time ago and thought that the energy would be more negative or menacing. This didn't seem to be the case during the actual investigation, and I would have to agree. But we all know Ghost Adventures like sensationalizes everything. There didn't really seem to be any spirits in distress or excessively negative or angry. They seemed to come and go as they please, interacting intentionally and according to their own preferences. The energy seemed to be more curious and selective. After experiencing issues during the walkthrough, I took preventative measures to ensure no energy would remain after the actual investigation, and this worked well. So I experienced no strange occurrences after. And I will say she shared with us like what she does and like a prayer that she does afterwards, and she sent it to us, and it was very interesting. Also, she's being so kind here. At one point when we were in the office, she was chatting about how something said it wanted to stab her. And her response was, "No, thank you." Just so,
I'm good.
yeah, so collected and cool about it. Like something's telling you it wants to stab you. And I think it was just trying to get a rise. Like, I really, truly do not think anything bad is there. But no, thank you.
With the same energy of declining a sample.
Yes. And so when she was chatting about it, we're like, what? And she's like, I just said no, thank you. And we're like, that was kind of like a running joke now when we're all chatting.
No,
we're like,
thank
no, thank
you.
you. Yeah, love it. So now I feel like that's what we're going to use during investigations when something's not being so kind. No, thank you. I was getting ready to do the Estes method when they walked in. And so I was like getting, in that mindset as they were talking about it. And we were kind of laughing. And then I'm like, okay, now it's time for Estes method. So anyways, our final investigators' thoughts. Nadine. The back room, Anthony's loft, felt like it was the most active. The atmosphere was heavier than anywhere else in the building. That's where we had the clearest, most intelligent communication through both the dowsing rods and spirit box. Our conversation with Anthony was the highlight. He answered direct questions on the dowsing rods, even name-dropped a president through the spirit box that matched the year we were talking about. And we heard a few unsettling laughs. I also strongly felt the presence of 3 distinct spirits, not visually, but through sensations like tingling and pressure in my neck and back. So she's very sensitive to things, so I thought that was interesting that, that's how she perceived that there were 3.
Yeah. And so Amanda and I always give unsolicited-ish paranormal investigation advice. So we were curious what advice the other investigators here would give you. And this is what they said. Ashley P. said, don't antagonize, be polite and respectful. Justin said, do your research on the place and get the facts as much information as you can. Always be respectful and show respect to the spirits. Always stand your ground and let the spirits know that they are not allowed to follow you home. Always protect yourself and have some sort of ritual you perform after an investigation. Ashley P. said, just trust your instincts. Investigate with a group that you work well with and trust. Make sure you leave with no attachments. Adopt your own rituals. Research and prepare. Be well hydrated and rested. Do your research. Check and charge your equipment. Be respectful to the owners of the building that you investigate, your crew, and the spirits you come in contact with. And we're going to play Christina's here.
The tips and tricks that I would offer: be patient. A lot of investigations are just sitting around asking questions and waiting, hoping for a response. A lot of times it's dead air. You're not really getting a response and you're not really getting interactions. That's a lot of patience. And the chances of having anything move in front of you are incredibly rare. So when it does happen, it's kind of exciting, but also do take that moment to try and debunk it. Was it from an air draft? Was it from somebody walking? Is there anything in the environment that could have caused it to occur or have a non-paranormal explanation? And then also, because there is a lot of downtime and just waiting, hoping for a response, use each opportunity to get to know your equipment better and improve your investigative techniques.
And then Danielle said, I would emphasize that paranormal investigations should not be pursued for the sole purpose of entertainment. Locations and entities should be treated with respect and approached with empathy and integrity. Spirits are just people who no longer occupy a body and are working through their own issues in their own time. Some are stuck and some choose to remain in certain locations. Like living people, most spirits are not bad and may even need help to move on. Conversely, more negative entities and spirits do exist and can cause significant issues if they choose to attach themselves to a living place, person, or thing. It's important to have reverence and appropriate precautions and protocols when working within the realm of the paranormal. I'm not saying this to cause undue fear, but rather as a statement of fact based on personal experience. And I think that's really fair. I feel like those are like some things that people don't always say, like consider why you're doing this, right? If you're like there to simply be entertained, maybe you just go on a ghost tour and let somebody tell you about experiences people have had. Yeah, like you hear ghost stories as opposed to trying to interact with a ghost specifically, because rather than trying to communicate with something specifically, because you could absolutely end up putting yourself in a dangerous situation and not even mean to.
Yes.
And then last but not least, Nadine said, start simple. You don't need all the fancy gadgets. An EMF detector, a spirit box, or even dowsing rods are plenty. And I'm just going to interject, as well as a notebook. More importantly, go in with respect. Spirits were people once, and when you treat them that way, you're more likely to get real communication. Protect yourself too. Find what works for you, whether it's crystals, groundings, or cleansing after.
With all of that said, I think Lindsay and I have already shared our thoughts several times about investigations in general, right? Be safe, be kind, protect yourself, protect your group. Make sure that you're, like you said, doing it for valid reasons.
Be well rested.
Yes.
Learn
Don't
from
be
our
exhausted.
mistakes.
Yes. And don't just immediately believe you're talking to someone because someone said you are.
Yes.
You may not be.
Mm-hmm.
We've gone through so many that we'd be here all day. But anyways, so rounding this out a little, just some interesting thoughts that I had after researching to kind of come back to who might be there. So earlier in the episode, we brought up 2 different Victors. Victor Vogel, who was the superintendent, and then Victor Corbel, who was the friend of Harry, which was the boy that died after getting electrocuted, right? Victor was the one on the ground that saw his friend die.
Mm-hmm.
Super weird theory, and I have nothing to go off of. But perhaps the Victor that the employees believe is watching them, I believe it could be either Victor. And here's why. I think that both Victors had a pretty good chance of knowing each other in their time in Tempe. And I went down a rabbit hole last night because I was like, I reread the article about Harry, right? And I saw Victor's name again, and I'm like, why do I feel like I want to look up what happened to Victor? Like, what happened after his friend died? I don't know why. There's no reason I did this.
And also, we don't do that a lot.
No.
And so I feel like that inclination, just even that itch would make me be like, My head also started tingling, like in the crown of
Really?
my head, like it does when we were saying that, because I do have an idea that kind of goes with this, but continue.
Okay. So yeah, last night at I was messaging Lindsay, I think at midnight when I was still working on this because I went down this rabbit hole. And I'm like, I need to look up what happened to Victor Corbel. So I did. And I had already looked up Victor Vogel because I had already did the notes for the article about his life. And then I had looked into what he did and where he was born and all that fun stuff about him. But both Victor's lives do overlap quite a bit. And it's more than I thought could ever happen. They were both involved in Tempe Rotary Club, both worked with the Tempe Union High School District. They both worked with the Chamber of Commerce. And both of them were pretty big influences to help shape Tempe's infrastructure. Maybe, this is my random tangent thoughts. Maybe Corbel told Vogel about the accident because he knew Vogel worked there and how safety was so important and to be sure all the employees and visitors stayed safe. Because I feel like if I experienced that and I was like, you work there where my friend died, listen, this happened, make sure it doesn't happen again, right? I don't know. That's just what I would do.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
also, not really related, kind of related, but not really related. But once I learned this, it made me really sad last night. Corbel dedicated a lot of his life working for the Salt River Project. We call it SRP here, which is a water and power company, right?
Yeah. Yeah. There's no way that
this shaped him.
Yes, of course it did.
So he oversaw some of SRP's transition into hydroelectric and water-powered systems. And I'm like, I don't know anything about power, right? I don't know.
You're not an energy scientist.
I am not. I should be, I guess. But I did Google a few things. And from what I saw, a lot of new safety measures were implemented, especially while they were transitioning to hydroelectric power. And I wonder if watching his friend tragically die because of old school, perhaps mismanaged electricity inspired his work to create a safer power system. And not that him hands-on was doing this, but as everything was evolving, he was working there.
It steered him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I did a quick dive into early 1900s power, and there wasn't much safety surrounding it, especially when Harry died. There wasn't caution signs. There wasn't fences around these posts. There wasn't anything like we have today when we have active wires, or I don't know if that even is a thing anymore. But anyways.
Hold on. You have a song though, right?
The hell are you talking about?
Well, if you were from Maryland, listen after the outro so you can sing along with me because you'll know this song. It's going to go at the end where it's more appropriate when we're not talking about a child who's passed away. But we'll sing the song together at the end. Not you because you don't know it, but Maryland people, they will know exactly this song and they know what I'm talking about right now.
Okay, Maryland people.
And when you were like, it's not like they have anything, I'll be like, no, they're teaching kids here now.
Oh,
quite specifically.
We're in Arizona school districts. We don't learn.
No, this isn't from teachers.
Oh,
yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, but we'll get there. We'll get there.
We're not ranked very high, unfortunately. That's why we homeschool. But
yeah.
Anyways, I looked into the 1900s power, and I was like, oh, there really wasn't a lot of safety precautions. And then at the time frame that he worked for SRP, he was a pretty big pivotal person there, but at the time frame, I feel like it was developing to be safer. And just like that he dedicated his work life to power. I mean, he did serve in the military and did all kinds of other stuff too. But just, I thought that was interesting. And then I'm like, well, what if he went back too to make sure that no one else got hurt? Who could say? It could be either Victor in my head.
So could I give you just like an alternate possible idea?
Yes.
So we talk about it more with Ghost Chat with Zach.
Okay.
But I feel a lot of how we view the spiritual self in terms of like the afterlife and sometimes the current life, if you will, is that your soul is like a set package that is all together as one.
Mhm.
And it cannot be separated. The pieces cannot be other places, right? Alternatively, you could believe in a higher consciousness and that you could have different versions of yourself at different times on this planet. And if that's the case, if it's possible that you're like full soul body, follow me here, right?
Mhm.
That it can be broken off into bits here and there. So why couldn't little Victor go hang out with his friend? Right? Because I mean, like we've talked about there being possibly several children there. And
Yeah.
like, if I know one thing, it's that the more children you have together, the more mischievous they become.
Oh, for sure.
Couldn't you see like a group of little kid ghosts like crawling around to try to scare people? Like it feels like
Pranks.
like there's several little kids around causing like hijinks in that way. The worst moments in your life, right? It's like you see this horrible thing, right? And that's terrible and traumatizing. But you also lost someone. And how nice to have a part of you that perhaps could go experience some time with a
Yeah.
part of that person.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Because when we think about little kid ghosts, sometimes it feels very sad to be like, oh no, like a whole little kid is stuck. Like a whole little kid's soul is stuck. But like maybe it's just a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, we will go over that more in our ghost chat.
Yeah.
But with all of that being said, this place is a place to visit, I'd say. And if you want to do kind of a spooky visit, ghost tour tickets for the Haunted Brewery tour are live. We're going to have the link for them in our show notes. And we've shared them already a few times, but we'll make sure to share their socials on our socials so that you can find
Mhm.
them, check them out. If you do visit, I want to know your thoughts on the theme and how excited you were when you saw what it was. I think it's definitely active and everyone should check it out, whether it's for ghosty reasons or just to hang out. It is a really cool like space too, just to see the history. It's an old building. It's a lot of fun though. Like it has fun energy as well. And I feel like even just like all the employees that we encountered while eating there and getting a drink and all that, everyone just seemed so cheerful and like they work together so nicely. You know, like when you're in those environments when you visit
Yeah.
an establishment and you're just like, this has good vibes and I like it here.
Yeah. It's
That's
a
what
place
that
you want to
is.
be.
Yeah, yeah. So, Lindsay, you ready?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We officially certify Four Peaks certified spooky.
Yeah, it's our first one. It's really official.
It's official.
Official.
Special thank you to Four Peaks and their employees for being such great hosts to us during our walkthrough and our investigation. They had to deal with us twice, and they were fantastic each time. And then also remember, we still have an interview with Zach at the end of our episode, and we're calling it Ghost Chat with Zach. And he is writing a spooky article as well. And once his article comes out, we will be sharing it on our socials so you can find it as well. But Lindsay and I are going to say goodbye in a moment, but continue listening to hear our interview with Zach.
Also, the sick sing-along for Maryland people.
Whatever that is. Yeah, that too.
And with that, have a great weekend.
Thanks for creeping with us. Okay, so how our investigation came together originally is because of a man named Zach who wanted to write about an investigation at Four Peaks. So we did ask him some questions as well. And if you want to follow along with his article, his Instagram is at Odin, EDEN.eats. So our first question.
How did you first get interested in the paranormal?
I grew up in the South, and I was talking to somebody and they were like, oh yeah, the South, you guys all believe in ghosts. And I kind of, because I'm a teacher and it was one of my colleagues and like they have like a PhD in literature and that was their takeaway. And I was like, well, yeah, I guess we do. If we don't believe in ghosts, we're certainly like haunted in a way. You know, it's a very gothic place. And when you're growing up, you just kind of, I don't think there was ever a point where, and this is what I'm wrestling with the story is like, how do I believe in ghosts? Do I believe in, what do I believe? And it's just always been kind of a part of the Southern experience is that you just, ghosts are real. They're as real as people, they're people, and they take up places and spaces, and they're kind of a way to tell stories about where we came from and who we came from, good and bad or otherwise. So I there's never been a moment in my life where I just didn't, especially when I was little, think that was a thing. So
I love that.
and I had a buddy's house when I was little that he said was haunted, and that freaked me out. I was like, oh my god, uh, it's ghost stories. So yeah, I don't know.
That makes sense. So I feel like I very much resonate with the idea of like, it's not necessarily that I believe in ghosts. It's just that they're an assumed fact in my brain. And like the experiences that I've had have made that. So it's not even so much of a belief as it is as a, yep, that's a fact. Now, is a certain place haunted? Let's find out.
Yeah, I'm a writer and I teach writing. And one thing I go back to is there's definitive fact, truth. Like this happened in this order, in this sequence, and we were there and we can verify. Then there's fact of feeling and fact of memory, and those are very subjective. And that is harder to parcel out. But when you look at stories, like Shakespeare is full of ghosts. Like Hamlet opens with a ghost, and what you have to assume of his audience is that if they didn't believe in ghosts, they certainly were inundated with the idea of ghosts. No one in that opening of Hamlet goes like, wait, a what? And
Right.
like they're just like, oh yeah, a ghost. Julius Caesar, there's so much Shakespeare and ghost stuff 500 years ago. And then you go back to the Bible. Again, this is like maybe my Southern upbringing, but like that's just a book that's, even if you're not a Christian, it's just there around you.
Yeah. Super old.
Yeah, and there's a scene where Jesus is walking on the water, right? And it's so iconic, but his disciples are afraid because they don't know who he is, and they think one of them says he's a ghost. That's a ghost. And so you have to go like, okay, well, 2,000 years ago they were thinking, well, ghosts are a thing. I just think it's a part of maybe the human experience, is the idea of this sort of story beyond us a little bit. So yeah, to me that rings true. If we tell stories to reflect ourselves and reflect our world, ghosts are just a part of it, a part of all of storytelling, and a really cool story. So,
Yeah.
Right? I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And so what made you want to do an investigation at Four Peaks or write about it?
I've written about Four Peaks a couple of times now. I really love the team, the like their creativity, the way they are very rooted in the community in Tempe. And I really like their beer. They do a really phenomenal job.
Yeah.
And hearing the stories and from people I wouldn't normally think are ghosty people, I was like, okay. And then at one of the dinners, they do dinners occasionally in the back room. And after it was over and we were kind of mingling, he was like, do you want to do a little ghost thing real quick? And I was like, okay. And it was maybe 10 o'clock. And he took us through like the Anthony room, and it just felt really eerie and heavy, kind of not like something I'd encountered a lot. I don't know if that was maybe the beer also kind of working, but it got me thinking that there's been a lot of investigations in the place, and it's definitely a part of who they present themselves as, but I was curious to see if there were other ways to go about doing it, and also like how much of it was just maybe people telling stories and continuing to tell a story. So
Oh, yeah. That's common with a lot of haunted places too.
Yeah.
Or a misinterpretation of something, or yeah, there's so many.
I got more freaked out when I watched like the Ghost Hunters video afterwards, and then I was honestly dreading the experience a little bit. I was like, I don't want to do this. Like
Oh no.
I was like,
Yeah.
was freaked out. I freaked myself out. It was kind of the more to the point.
So that's how you felt going into the investigation then, is just freaked out from the show, or
Yeah.
what were your thoughts leading up?
Well, I'm pretty obsessive in my research. And so like I read 2 or 3 books. I read Ghostland,
Oh, you told me about that one.
which is really good. And the other one, I can't remember the name, but it's 2 female historians that take a look at like iconic American ghost stories. So one of them was like through the lens of like race, one of them was through like a feminist lens. And then I did like a haunted Phoenix kind of touristy book. And by that point, I was really down the rabbit hole. And then I started watching YouTube videos.
There's endless ones.
Yeah. And just of that space. And there's so many of Four Peaks ghost tours and like ghost adventures, and the through line for me was they were all kind of very sensational. and a little aggressive. So I think part of that is like hamming it up for the camera, but that put me off a little bit. And I think I started to get in my own head a little bit about supernatural experiences. My first encounter at Four Peaks, which I honestly, my wife and I had very different takeaways from that because we were doing it together. And I felt very not at ease, and she was kind of fine with it. And so it got me thinking about, honestly, like, uh, I don't, ghost tourism, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so I don't know, but I was freaked out. I was dreading it. I did not want to go. To be honest, I was like, it's going to be a late night, and I am honestly a little freaked out by the idea. But then I also was like, but I don't honestly know if I even believe in this, and if this place is haunted. So it was,
Yeah.
you know, I don't know. Is there like a ghost hunter therapy thing I should go to, or?
I think that that's a common thought, though, when you're going to a
Yes.
haunted place, because when I have seen how other people who do like paranormal investigations, how they interact with a space and they're disrespectful, I find it like kind of cringy. And I have this like visceral response. It feels like walking into someone's house and just like screaming at them for no reason. And I feel like that's kind of like a discomfort, that it's a sign that perhaps that you're a kind paranormal investigator in the making.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
I I don't know if I'll be investigating any further paranormals. These are my final paranormals.
That Southern accent.
Yeah,
There we go.
it's more of a character I slip into, but
I understand.
I don't know. I'm always wary, like, because I do food writing, and I'm a white male from the South, with a big beard, and like I get what that maybe presents as, or like what it. So you have to be like careful if you want a good connection with anybody you're writing about. I think you have to put them at ease, and you have to be curious. You have to like suspend any preconceived ideas, and just be open. You have to be in the present. Okay, if that like, so I may have my own biases or my own ideas, but in that moment, I'm going to do my best to let the subject do what they want to do and say what they need to say, because it's about them and it's not about me. Tourism it's about going to a place that you are not from, and we're living. We are not in the after, if that is a thing. But if it is a thing, and these people or spirits do stick around for whatever reason, I would be really mad, like after a certain point, to be like, just it's like poking a animal in a zoo or something. And that's one thing I really learned in watching the investigation unfold, was there was consent. There was asking for permission. There was asking for, if it was something that was that they wanted or were willing to do. It was not an aggressive attempt to provoke a reaction. So it really turned my perception of what this could look like or be like or feel like, kind of inverted it a bit. So it was a cool takeaway.
Oh, I'm glad. So once you got in there, then what did you think going around? I know this might be at the beginning of our episode. So when we did do the investigation, we were kind of broken up into groups because it's such a large place.
Yeah.
And you guys got to float a little bit and see all of the groups and what was going on in all the rooms.
Yeah. I joked it looked like in the movie Aliens, when the Space Marines were like setting up all their equipment and like, they're ready to go and fight, and they're like, and I'm just like standing there like, what does this do? And how do you hold this? And where does that, like, I'm an idiot, but
No, it's all new to all of us at some point.
yeah. And I was just like, wow, this is a lot of equipment. And I was like, I feel bad. Like they had to like bring it all in, and it's like, and then it kind of happened and I didn't know what was happening, or like Justin went off, like he's like doing recon, but then everybody kind of just went. I was like, wait, are we doing this now? Like I'm not,
It's go time.
I'm not like mentally, wait, I thought there was like a ritual, or I thought there was like and so that moment I was freaked out, because now there's no, like, in my mind, there's like, what's the plan? And I'm like observing, and I was with two other, Nadine and
Danielle.
Yeah. And we walked and turned that corner, and it just felt really heavy and like kind of creepy, scary in that one specific spot, which was by the kegs.
Yep. I know exactly what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
near the what we call the older wooden keg room, which is I think where they put their casks. And then that made me, probably part of it was just psyching myself out. But once we reconvened and kind of came up with a plan, I felt much better. And then had a better like kind of feel. But yeah, that was my first. It was like I was like, can I curse on this thing, or is this like a
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
no,
Fuck
we're
yeah.
wild.
okay? Yeah. I was like, oh shit, this is happening. And I was like, I guess I'm rolling with it now. I'm in for a penny, in for a pound. So yeah, in Home Alone, where he's like, "This is it. Don't get scared now." That was just in my head, and I still got a little scared. So
Oh, it's unsettling when you like even us. We've gone to several, and leading up to, you're like, oh, what can happen? Because we've had night and day differences between day to day. We did 2
Yes.
investigations earlier this year back to back, and they were completely different investigations. One was super aggressive. One was so fun.
We played hide and seek with ghosts. Kind of
Yeah.
fun. Like, one of the coolest things I've ever done in my life.
Yeah.
And yeah, it sounds ridiculous.
No.
It sounds like when I first thought about it, I was like, how would you know? But the idea, man, did you talk about this already? I don't want to repeat.
I told him that we've done games with ghosts, but I didn't really go into it too much. So
okay. So you would have an EMF reader and you would say, like, do you want to hide or do you want to seek? And most of the time they wanted to hide.
tracks.
And you would just kind of walk around and look in hiding spots around this house, and then the EMF reader would go off. Like, you would find where they were, and then like you'd be like, do you want to hide again? And we would ask like with a different type of tool. And sometimes they said yes, sometimes they said no. But like you would then go look for them again. And
Mhm.
it was reliable, where we'll often walk around with the tools beforehand just to see like where is it going off in the beginning.
Where the electricity is,
Yes.
and stuff.
And this isn't places where it was going off before, but very cute.
And at a park.
Yeah, we did it at a park.
Open air, nothing
Wow.
to go
Mhm.
off. But we were doing STs, which you got to experience as well, where one
Spooky.
had the headset on, and they would respond through that. And she had no way of hearing what we were asking. And she was replying, yes, sir, yes, ma'am. You hide or we hide. It was wild. It was so much fun.
They also made fun of Amanda. They said, does she even know how to seek? Like, because she was talking to somebody. It was like, okay.
I was looking for them, and someone asked at the park, because we probably look like crazy people, asking what we were doing. I was explaining it because they had also gone on a ghost tour with us beforehand, and I was explaining what we were doing.
Okay.
And so the guy's like, oh, okay. And then they were roasting me, like on the other side
Loved
of the
it.
park, because I stopped looking.
It's good to know that even in the afterlife, you can get roasted, like, or that that's on the table. Like, that makes me very optimistic. Like, okay, well, at least the sardonic spirit transcends. So, and so that's something I think on my end, and if, kind of parceling out that story on the record, because a lot of what I'm writing about or trying to write about, and this is a weirdly personal story for me because I've had some like kind of, and I can't really, all right, so how to do this. The story's not about me. So I have to like figure out like, how do I take that out of it? But like for me, like just as a touch point, like, my mom passed away 12 years ago. And one of the last things, it was very sudden, and we were moving, or they were moving, and they had a house in Ohio, and she thought very much so that the house was haunted by the spirit that was like congenial and her friend. And she got very sick literally the day after they moved, and they moved to Tennessee, and she wound up in the hospital that night. But had they delayed it a day, they would have still been in Ohio, and she would have died in the house. She passed away a month later, but there was no hospital within an hour. She would have, and she came to after her first surgery, and she said the ghost, she called Margaret. She said Margaret didn't want me to leave the house.
Aww.
Yeah. And that creeped me out like infinitely, because then I'm thinking like, this isn't a benevolent ghost. Like, what do they want? She, is this real? And that's a really personal kind of angle for a ghost story, because I had no real ghost
Experience
issues until then. Yeah. And so, Margaret would be playful, but then according to my mom, Margaret would also like throw shoes down the stairs or do stuff that was a little scary. So when we were on the hunt, or I don't want to call it a hunt, that seems like
investigation.
Yeah, hunt seems like predator,
Yeah, I think of that too. Yeah.
Yeah, I was really curious about like the bells and the playing and the banter. Like it was very different than what I was expecting because it seems like there was a childlike kind of communication, or at least one, back and forth that was very, I teach middle school, so like it was very middle school coded. I was like, that's like a sassy teen thing going on.
Yeah. Oh, I think in the big room that we were in, the bottling room.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It seemed really nice. It seemed playful. And so during the investigation, you felt better then as it went on
In pockets.
in pockets.
I guess that's really what I'm curious. Like, how? Like, all right, one, did you think the place was occupied?
I do. I feel like I was trying to explain to Lindsay too. I feel like it's active, but also kind of secretly active. Like it wants you to know it's there, but it doesn't always want to hang out.
Yeah,
Whatever. And I think it's multiple because, like you said, there's different personalities that tend to come through in different parts. Like, I feel like when we were up in the office, and we're going to talk about that in a bit, but when we were up in the office was completely different than the bottling room and like the vibes and the feelings.
yeah. Yeah. So there were pockets where I was like, this is fine, and then there were pockets where I don't feel great. It feels maybe it was the air felt heavy or cold, or just felt maybe it was my own imagination. Learning about things like shadow people did not help.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Because now I'm feeling like great shadow people. And also, like, it depended on who I was with, I think, too. Because I have to be a conscientious objector. Like, and in the story, even now, there are things I can tell you that happened that I think were true. And then there are things I'm like, well, I don't know. Or maybe that's what they believed. And it's really more about you guys. And so it would depend on who I was with. Some people I think were much more bought in and wanted me to be bought in, if that makes sense. And I know I can like
It says.
present as an easy mark, right? So I would be the guy at the hypnotist show who'd be like, oh, so like,
Let's give it a go.
yeah. So like I have to be very aware of that. And so that's why like I didn't do like they're holding the rods. I was like, I need to have some separation
Yeah.
because I could be biased in a way I don't maybe know or in the moment realize. So like that, or like in the upstairs when you had the headphones on, and I was like, maybe I should do that. I really want to like experience that. Like I'm already here.
Yeah.
And I was like, that actually is probably too. I can't be in the story.
Yeah.
But yeah, there were pockets that felt different and different reactions. Was weird.
What was your favorite type of investigation tool that you experienced there?
I don't understand the way some of them work, so I'm trying to learn more.
That's fair.
I was kind of skeptical of the apps, to be honest,
Oh, we were too.
Yes.
because it's I just don't know what they have access to and what they don't.
Exactly.
I was very curious about the bells.
Yeah, the ghost bell.
Like, are they triggered? Like an electromagnetic Are they just a bell?
No, it's not just a bell. The one that he has, hold on, I want to make sure I'm talking about the correct model because there's a couple different ones. But I believe it uses EMF fluctuations to go off. And then it does have a sensor where I turned it down quite a bit because when I first turned it on, I feel like it was way too sensitive. So like if someone walked by with a cell phone or something like that, it was going off.
Okay.
So I turned it way down, the sensitivity.
Yeah.
And then it seemed to be better and less frequent.
Yeah.
And so they're fun. That's the way that when I was telling you about St. Augustine, they had taught their spirits to play blackjack with it.
Coolest.
I was like, wow.
The dead are more than just dead.
Mm-hmm.
And they're more than just there to help us at Halloween to scare ourselves. Like these are, I've never thought about like, oh yeah, you'd be bored. You'd want to play cards.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Hide and seek. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So fun.
Watch some shows, like hang out. Like what is it we do in life? So yeah, is it the EVPs that with the radio frequencies that bounce around?
EVP is when you have like the voice recorder and then you may hear a voice that you don't hear when you're there, but later when you're listening to it,
Oh,
you may hear it.
okay. What was the one with the radios that was like dialing between the?
Oh, okay. That's a spirit box.
Okay.
So it's basically like a broken radio. It just scans very quickly. And then if there is like a fluctuation, it'll stay on a word longer than you'd expect because, it's like, but then if you hear a whole sentence, you're like, how did that sentence just like come through or make itself. Sometimes you'll hear voices that sound not quite like radio, that they sound like they're right next to you.
We had that happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like a lower register, something that didn't sound like it was on that band, like just the volume of
The radio, yeah.
And that was in the Anthony room. I think more than anything though, like just the feeling. So that was actually a thing. Like I had like a little bit of like an audio processing kind of thing. Like if the fan is on in the kitchen, like while I'm cooking, it really drives me nuts.
I hate the kitchen
It
fan.
makes me like really, and the radio tool with it was like, I was like, oh my God, they just put me in this like really anxious state sonically.
It's overwhelming.
Yeah.
It's overwhelming. That's why I like the SDs a little bit more, because it's only one person having to feel that.
And I would say it's even more unnerving because my husband has an auditory processing delay and he was doing it when we were in St. Augustine and he was moving slower than other people were. And at one point he like opened his eyes and was like, "Hey, I'm sorry, I'm going kind of slow. Like it's hard for me to understand." And then the next thing he heard was "idiot." I was like, "That's rude."
Yeah. That was the aggressive night though.
Yeah, that was a weird night. Also, just
Yeah.
as a note, I realized I didn't know what EVP stood for. Like I knew what it was, but I didn't realize what the acronym is. It's electric
Electronic.
voice phenomena. So I was like, oh, I don't know what I thought it stood for. I was like EVP. I'd never questioned it. I was like, it's ghost voice. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's and I've seen it in like movies and on the ghost hunt. Like I was like, okay.
Yeah.
But it also makes me curious, and I'm sure this is probably a book somewhere, but like the tools, the history of like paranormal communication, Mary Todd Lincoln would have mediums over and, at the White House and, the ways that we communicate with the dead and, like, cause now we have a smartphone and it's like,
Yeah.
hang on, I've got this ghost. I got to take this like thing real quick. And I've been really tempted to download that app and I've abstained so far.
Lindsay and I tore it apart at first.
Yeah. And I would say too, whenever you're using any type of app, test it, right? Like I have a tool, it's this freestanding tool that like says words and I'm like, I need you to tell me a state. And then I have them tell me a number. And until they tell me a state and a number, everything else is just noise. I was like, if you want to talk, this is what I was like, I need to make sure this is working. So I'm going to just assume that this is just something spitting out words and we're not having a conversation until this happens. And sometimes I have to turn the settings down. But also, I love when they bring up Mary Todd because I think that it's such a good example of ghosts being a way that people cope with grief.
Yeah.
And how when we think about the paranormal, in essence, it always kind of boils down to what's next. And what's next is always tied up with people who we've lost and who we've loved. And it's just kind of like the full perspective of it. And I think that so many people, they come to the paranormal from a place of like love and grief before they get to it in any spooky way. That's why I'm like, we're spooky all year because it exists, everything exists all year.
It's so tragic. And I think she's very maligned. Like, there's George Saunders it's kind of a weird novel, but Lincoln in the Bardo, which is all about that. And some of it's taken from excerpts of actual, the real true story is, their favorite son died in 1862, I believe. It was right after they hosted their first big party and he had pneumonia. And I think they left the windows open. So, and it, just kind of compounded and he died, he passed away like the next day or two. And that was their second child that they buried at that point. They would bury one or two more. Only one lived to adulthood. And I think it just destroyed him too. He spent the night of the funeral. She didn't go to the funeral and she got a lot of like tabloid flack for it. And he went, and then there's Secret Service logs that record him leaving the White House and walking to the mausoleum and breaking in and sleeping next to his body that night, which is like, as a father, and you hear that and it's so macabre before I think you become someone whose life is really intertwined in love. And, the ultimate fear is loss of that person as a parent. And then you hear it again as a parent and you go like, yeah, I get it. I think the story that bothered me at Four Peaks was about the boy, the father who worked there.
Yeah.
And he was 11. His father worked there. They had just put electric grids in Tempe, and that was one of the first places because it was on the railroad line, and he was climbing it like a tree.
Yeah.
And he put his foot on the grounding wire and it killed him. And I think if ghost stories are scary, I think it's because we're scared of death. I think we're scared of, especially in our culture, we don't want to talk about it. And to be in a place where you are perhaps directly encountering it is very antithetical to the way I think a lot of us think and operate. So yeah, I think that kind of cuts to the quick of it. Is it's something we're all going to deal with or we've dealt with, but it's also a way for us to try and like find some solace with all of it. Like I certainly want to believe in ghosts because or not ghosts. I want to believe in an afterlife and spirits. I don't want to believe in ghosts, if that makes sense.
Yeah, the idea of being trapped in a place
Yeah.
against your will, I find horrifying. I always talk about people who they see like a ghost of someone working there. They're still working after they've died. And I'm like, no,
Terrible.
absolutely
Terrible.
not.
Clock
I
out.
hate it.
Clock out. Go home.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
absolutely not. I was like, every time we talk about it, it upsets me because I'm like, not at your job. You don't want to be working for life. But like the idea of that. And so I feel like paranormal and entities and all these things are so tied up with my like spiritual beliefs. And I think that a lot of people, they kind of tease them apart in terms of like, they're like, oh, that's just spooky. Those are just stories, as opposed to kind of aligning with how they see the world and how things may or may not work and what they think.
Yeah, it's definitely tied to your worldview, which is tied to like your spirituality and all the yeah, I definitely don't want to, I joke with my students, like if you don't do, like, I will haunt you. I will come back to this school and I will haunt you if you don't turn this, like, if I pass away in this classroom, you're the one. I'm fall like and I'm joking, like, no, I'm just kidding. I never want to work again. If I'm dead, I do not care. Like, I don't, they're like, do you remember me? I'm like, who are you again? Like, when they come in the next year, I'm like, it's your favorite student. And I was like, yeah, how is John doing? Like, that was literally like an hour ago. I had a former student come in. They're like, I'm in high school. And I was like, oh, yeah, what's your name? But yeah, I don't want to be working when I'm dead. I guess when we were like I called it kind of a seance moment because it felt we were around this table
Upstairs?
Yeah, there was like eerie lighting. I was closest to the door, which I did not like. There was a weird light, and then there was like one of the team members. Yeah, earlier I saw this really creepy kind of like demon thing. It was like on for but like I'm like, oh, that's great. That's a cool Twin Peaks kind of reference. It was just on the stairs, glaring at me. Okay.
No worries.
Yeah, that's
Casual.
fine. I'll just sit here. And then Carter was like, I got touched. So all that's going on.
He jumped.
He
too.
did. And I
He
don't,
jumped high.
you can't really fake that reaction because he looked at
No.
me like I was like fucking with him. And I was like, that wasn't me. And he's like, I just got touched. But one of the things someone asked was, do you want to leave? Like, do you need help leaving? And they said essentially, no, I like it here. And that bothered me.
Why does that bother you?
I want there to be more than like an old creamery full of beer that I can't drink because I don't have like that to me is like,
Oh, like you're thinking like Ghostbusters vibes, like it's gonna come out, or in Casper when they're eating like what are they eating Sundays, and it just kind of like
Yeah.
goes
Oh, yeah,
right
they
through
got,
them
like,
after
all the
they
food.
chew.
yeah.
Yeah,
That to me seems because eating and drinking, because this is a food article, are inherently things that the living do.
Yeah.
It makes us, we feel alive. It's one of those things that makes us feel alive. It's very obviously something has to die in order for us to keep going, whether it's a plant or an animal. It's very metaphorical. But as a ghost, you're like, I'm stuck in a brewery and I can't drink. That sounds terrible. Like
yeah,
That's torture.
fair.
like,
That's fair.
and granted, like, I mean, and you're bored, so you're like, well, it's probably not healthy, but now you're dead, so you don't care. It's like, I want to, have a beer. Can't do that. So I just want there to be more. And I think about the loved ones that have passed on, people that, friends and family. And I did have a very eerie story. I got an email. A friend of mine passed. We used to play music together. We were in like a band, and one of the last people before I moved from Ohio that I actually hung out with. And he's a little bit older than me. So this is also a thing when you're a male in your 40s. And I think Bill Burr has this like bit about like guys just start dropping dead, like heart attack or something. It's like, we're not.
Yeah.
And then that happened. He was out kind of partying or something. And he's, you're too old to do that. And he did. And they found him like in his house that he had built by himself 3 days later, And a friend of mine was like, they're really hurting because he was a very beloved person. with a really big personality, and it could swing both ways. He could be very loving and just big teddy bear, but he could get really sharp. I think that was something he wrestled with, but when he passed, and like there were constant power outages in the transformer next to his house. The transformer line would, it blew like twice, and like parts of the town were off the grid, and people were like, yeah, that might have been him. Like that was the email I got, was we think that was his way of, I just hope he's not in that house. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does.
Don't want that for my loved ones.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of different theories that people believe or have explored of. Some people like hanging out because they still want to do something or see someone or something to happen, or they're waiting for someone, whatever it may be. There's so many different ones. But also for hotspots like the brewery, where tons of people visit every day, right? Like tons of people visit, and you don't know who's hitchhiking with them occasionally.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, oh, hey,
Just passing through.
This is a bar. There's others here that I want to hang with for a bit. And sometimes it's kind of like a drop off, like, hey, there's a lot of things going on here. This looks fun. I'm going to hang here for a bit.
Good people watching.
Yeah.
Also, like, I'm a person who I love when anyone is excited about a thing and knows a lot about a thing. I want everyone to tell me about their special interest. So I could see myself, if like some part of me stayed behind, just kind of bebopping around, watching people do something they love for a moment and then moving to the next thing, because maybe what you consume as a different type of entity is like, maybe what you consume is experiences, or maybe you consume the energy, right? Which like when they suck like the power out of things. I also think that too, like Amanda and I, we spoke with someone who like, they were telling us about like their worldview, and we were like, what? And they were talking about the idea that like you have a higher big consciousness and little bits of you basically come down. And so it's not all of you that is that's staying behind. It's just a little bit of your energy. It's just a little bit of you. It's not the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, So like,
so interesting.
It makes it feel less like heartbreaking to think like, oh, my loved one is stuck here, versus they've left a little bit behind because they loved this place.
For as long as they want to. Like they could if they want.
Yeah, they could just keep on keeping on if they wanted to.
Mm-hmm. And like one of the stories was that old manager of the creamery. And if he truly loved his work and wanted to make sure that the place was not falling apart, that might make sense that a piece of him's like still managing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that was a guy who, I mean, let's be honest, how much work did he really get done? Like, it sounds like he loved to sit, like, stand around. And he was the guy who you'd be working, and he's like, well, that thing right there is like, that. Remember when they put that in here? And he's like, okay, thank you. I'm so curious, like, because a lot of these ghost stories are like 100 years old. I don't know if you guys have ever like thought about what are like Gen Z ghosts gonna be? Like, are we?
I'm hyped about it. I'm hyped about it.
It's gonna be real weird.
Yeah. Like I saw this spectral image, and it was like in baggy jeans, and it was staring down at its like iPhone 14, and it was on an app that doesn't exist anymore, and then it was just gone.
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
Yeah.
I like the idea of like, when you think of like haunting sounds and like ghost music, it's always like something classical,
piano,
but the fact that we're going to hear ghost emo music one day, or like a Christina Aguilera song, like a genie in a bottle, like that's just going to be like playing from the basement. Like that's the weird stuff that other generations are going to hear in 50 years. They'll be like, yeah, my house sometimes like my phone goes off and I get a call and it's no one. Versus I feel like today it's like a door slamming versus like, no, like my TV turned off. Like I feel like it's like the same kind of like slamming. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
More electric.
Well, and you've made fun of when you came here last. You're like, well, the ghosts aren't going to be as well dressed. They're going to be cowboys.
Yeah. Because I'm in Baltimore, where we've got like, in terms of like
real old,
very, very populated spaces and cities, we've got cobblestones. We've got hundreds of year old buildings here, versus places where it's not that it was uninhabited. It was just that it wasn't buildings that are like the same structure as they are today.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of spaces where, even if it's not the same space, it's kind of similarly shaped, where the person could still be in the same kind of pattern of space and old-timey clothes.
Yeah, you get Edgar Allan Poe. Like we get like, I don't know, Barry Goldwater. Like,
yeah.
Well, I'm curious, and we've kind of touched on this a little bit, but that is the thing with the West. There's so much here before colonialism, and spirits. And there was someone who had a very eerie story, and it was weird because I was talking to someone the other day who had a very similar story about being in kind of an old west town. And you mentioned like passersby, or almost to borrow from Arrested Development, like a hop on kind of spirit situation. You're gonna get some hop ons,
like a hitchhiker.
yeah. And Carter had one about going to, I believe it was Yuma, maybe. Don't quote me on the location. Having a really negative, felt like a negative spirit follow him home sort of thing. And one of my colleagues had something similar when we were talking about ghost stuff. I guess maybe my other weird question or thing that I was mulling over is spirits presenting as ghosts. If those are like two different things, and like you think you're talking to one thing or engaging with one thing, and then there's something else actually there. And that to me is terrifying.
It is.
Yes.
When it happens, it sucks.
I think that is one of the most dangerous parts of an investigation, is that if you come in with preconceived notions of who you're talking to, your defenses are going to be different. If you come in thinking you're talking to a child, and so your defenses are down in that way, I just feel like there's just a lot more space for weird stuff to happen.
Yeah.
We went to a house in Villisca where a whole family was murdered. And when we started off, there was a lot of discussion that we were talking to children. And I never had that impression. It was never the energy that I got. And at one point, like, we were leaving and I got physically pushed.
Like hard.
Like visibly, like pushed. And I was like, that was not a child. But like, it was very clear that something wanted us to think it was. And I'm just like, oh yeah, I think that happens all the time. Because also, if you want attention and you want someone to interact with you, sometimes you're just going to be what they want so that they talk to you.
Yeah.
Because if you're, I don't know, say you're like a middle-aged dude and they're like, hey, like, how old are you? And every time you say it, you're like, I don't know, I'm 55. I'm 38, so middle age gets further and further away. Now, by the way, that's just the way it is. So I'm like, no, like, I was like, the age is not 110, but we're going to go 55. I like to tell my husband it's exactly 42 because he just turned 42. So I tell him it's 42 exactly. But
hold up, time out. So ghosts here, I'm processing here.
Okay.
So much, yeah.
Okay, that's a lot to take in.
Welcome.
Male ghosts, especially if we're still in that kind of subdivision, they're lying about their age to seem younger to talk to people.
A little creepy, right?
Yeah, they're catfish. They're like the cat to catch a predator.
Yeah.
Like that show. Chris is going to be a ghost and he's going to pop out and catch other ghosts lying about their age.
God.
That's how he'll haunt.
Except it's not like a chat room, it's a spirit box.
But this is what this is like my hope that it gets better on the other side. And you're just like, no, we're still doing the same shitty things.
Parts of them might be.
Part of the time.
I don't know. So I don't know. Maybe this is my southern, like, I don't know if you can, the idea of subdividing a soul or a person is crazy to me. And I'm still like dealing with like, well, you know, their little angry part's going to be in the angry building over here. And, you know, the part that loves beers going to the, I was like, I don't know.
Like, what do you mean the part that likes beer? I mean, I think that like, it's like my brain's like one big consciousness that's kind of sometimes filled with other ones because I believe in reincarnation.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, but like, I believe in reincarnation with my whole being, but I also have so many experiences from after my grandmother passed. That was her, without a doubt. I'm talking, we were like, Nana, where is the documents for this particular thing? And then you'd walk out of the room, you'd hear something fall on the floor and you'd go back and it was like a packet of documents you were looking for.
Yeah.
Right? Like so clear. And it was like nobody else knew where those were unless, I don't know, the ghosts there were very involved with paperwork and where it was stored.
Clerical ghost.
Experiences like that, clerical ghost also sounds terrible. Just another type of thing that I don't want to be doing after I'm dead. But I think that, I don't know, a part of you that stays behind, but a part of you that moves on. And I don't know. I don't know if we're one big thing or we can separate a little, or this version of myself is connected to like a bigger version of myself.
Yeah, we have a neighbor, like pretty much my kid's surrogate great grandmother. She's 88.
Love that.
Miss Margaret. She's like the most amazing. She was she's a transcendentalist. She practices transcendental meditation.
Hell yeah.
And you know, again, I'm just like, hey, how's it going? Do you need help with your car? And she'll just tell me, like, I'll ask questions, and getting her perspective on what comes after and the transcendental plane and astral projection and your astral body and things I have no real concept of. and then trying to square them with like some things that maybe I have encountered or experienced or have heard of other people, it is hard to, I guess that is why it's called a great mystery, right? But it's hard to parcel out. And I think at the end of it, because one of the questions was like, what was my takeaway
Yeah.
on all of it? I joked with Carter the next time I saw him, because I did the whole thing, like, and I even I freaked myself out. I was like, maybe I wasn't clear enough in my communication. Please don't follow me home. Like, okay. And I was like, okay, look, I'm leaving now. I'm gonna get in this van. I'm gonna drive and go home to my family. You got to stay here. Like, we're good. You keep doing you. I'm gonna go on. I got to get some sleep. And then I got to my house, and it's like a 30-minute drive. And come in, and the house is completely dark. And I was like, man, I'm really hungry. I would love a snack. And then I was like, nope, shadow people, nope, not even. I'm just gonna go straight up. I'm gonna keep my head down, just down, and I'm just gonna go up. And I think I slept in like what I was wearing. I'm gonna be up in like 3 hours. There's no need to change. I am just fine. And so I was a little freaked out. But then I was like, oh, well, maybe it's not so bad if these folks have done a lot more of these than I have. And I think my takeaway was that you guys had more positive interactions than negative.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just like people.
Yeah.
They're people. Gonna have some good engagements and bad ones, and
Yeah. And I think I shared with you my thoughts on when they were saying that there might have been a negative spirit there, and I'm like, he's not negative.
We're talking about Anthony.
He's particular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was confused because to me, Anthony, there's like this kind of, at least in the engagement with the radio frequencies, and is it dowsing rods?
Dowsing rods,
Yeah.
those aren't my favorite, but some people love them.
Yeah, they were like getting to a date of like when he was alive, and he named the president, and because I can fact it, because he was like, they're like, when 1930s, and it was like 1933, and they were like, well, who was president, or like, did you like the president? He said Roosevelt, and I was like, yeah, that's actually Roosevelt's first year in office, or I think first term.
Yeah.
But it was immediately like, yeah, that tracks. And I was like, okay, he's just like a crotch. If he's a thing, he's a crotchety old dude. I like crotchety old dudes. Like, I would have a beer with him, like over a beer or two. I think he would be cool.
He'd be fine.
Yeah. It would depend on the beer, which is, I think, one of the questions I had for everyone is like, what beer would Anthony be? I would have to say like a porter, something dark and pretty.
I was like, he likes some of the hard stuff.
Yeah. He definitely would go. And Victor would just be like, he's a working class dude.
Yeah.
I was like, that dude, loggers all day, and, some good stories. But I was under the impression there was something else, like talking to some folks, especially the creepy entity on the stairs, Twin Peaks-esque demon moment, where that was what was described. And I was like, that's not great.
Yeah.
So do you think that there's something else? Because that was also the ghost hunters thing, was like, there's something older here and malevolent.
Yeah. And you're talking about Zach Bagans, right?
I think so.
That episode. Yeah. So we are not fans of him.
Yeah.
In any capacity.
That's a kind way to say it. That's the kindest thing you could
Was he
was
he truly the malevolent spirit in the room?
I mean,
I think he always is.
If he came into my space, I would be pretty upset.
Yeah.
So, no, I don't think so. It could have been something messing with us too, because who you're referencing that saw something kind of crawling was Ashley. And that was one of, hopefully I'm correct, that's one of the first spooky interactions she's actually had, because she's fairly new into investigating. And so she was surprised at herself that she was just like, oh, there's something there. And she didn't panic or anything. But I wonder if it was just something kind of messing with us, knowing that perhaps she's new and didn't know much about investigating. Like, she knows a lot, but hasn't done it a lot. And maybe it was that. But I don't when we got up there the first time, I don't remember if you were with us when we first walked up there, when Carter was kind of showing us around that area.
No, I wasn't.
It seemed heavier, and it seemed like, yikes. And then we're like, we want to come up here again later. Let's go set up more of our stuff. And then when we returned, it was a lot lighter.
And that's when I was up there, and it was a little bit like, this is...
I mean, I feel like it was messing with Carter, like, for fun.
He told me at the dinner, he came up to the table. This was 3 days later, and he was like, so Because he'll just like the way he converses is he just kind of like drops you into a story,
Love it.
and you're like kind of like finding the context as you go, and I do love that about him. But he's like, so I was cleaning the back rooms and the bathroom because we're cleaning at the office, and he was listening to a podcast and or music, and it cut out, and someone just went hello, and he's like, yeah, so that happened like an hour before you got here. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool, freaky. And he was like, he's like, it's definitely very active right now. And his take is interesting because he's a marketing guy, he's a writer, but he's their kind of de facto caretaker.
Yeah.
Did you get that impression? Like, I feel like I don't think he thinks this is bunk.
I like the relationship he has with his spirits there, though. They're like his coworkers, like his friends, the way that he talks about them, and I love that.
Yeah, and I think they kind of feel, again, like that was the interaction. I was like, this guy again.
Yeah. Well, and when we were upstairs and they touched him and like he jumped up and his eyes got really big, and I'm like, I couldn't fake it that well. Like I couldn't act that well. Maybe he is a good actor, but like I bought it.
No, I don't think he's that good of a actor. I think he's like, oh great, because he did it to me. He's like, and he felt like, when you're messing with somebody and you do
Yeah.
it's a very typically teenage boy thing to do, like, when you're walking past someone or something.
Yeah.
This was another thing he said at the kind of debriefing with him. I was like, how do you think it went? Because he's had a lot of these come in. And he said, actually, it was really kind of a master class in like being mindful. Like he said, the place gets less active when you've got these really aggressive like personalities that are really, forward, mostly male. And he said, like, if you're able to just be quiet and be cool, they're gonna like feel more comfortable. So
Yeah.
I thought that was a compliment to what you guys were doing. Was
That's good.
the space kind of seemed to open up, because I thought it was more active than I thought it was going to be.
That's good. Yeah. I mean, we won't work with like I occasionally will go on investigations with Rogue, so that's the investigation group, and I won't work with someone that is not kind to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And so whether you're a spirit or not, like they deserve respect just as much as any of us do. And so that's also why we try to go like, do you have any questions for us? Especially if it's not terrifying or being awful. We'll go to, you have any questions for us? Like, do you want to know about anything? We were asking, like, do you like people watching when all the people come to eat here and drink here? Is it fun? And
So interesting. Yeah. On that end, I guess it would be nice, would make you think of other things like, oh, okay, I remember, I don't know. It seems like they can understand at least some of where we're coming from or what we bring to the table. Like they said, maybe they were messing with your colleague who was new. How would they know that they're new? How would they know what do they know of what we bring to a space? And then also, like, what do they retain is, I think, an interesting question.
yeah.
Yeah.
We also describe things in the way that we understand them with our current framework, right? So like for as far back as humans have existed, we fit things into what we already know, right? So like say I said to you, 2 pieces, a top and a bottom piece of bread with ground meat inside. I feel like most people would say a burger.
Yeah.
But that could be a patty melt. That could be something else, right? But we all have our like first thing that we think of. And then sometimes we use those words to describe it when like maybe it's just that kind of shape, right? Like, I don't know. Unless she was like, no, like for sure a demon. But like, I also, if I saw like a black shadow creature with horns or something, I'd be like, demon.
Yeah.
Like that is where I would go. But I'm like, I don't actually know what a demon is or is not.
Yeah.
And we have like a Christian like worldview kind of in America when it comes to like spiritual stuff like that. And a lot of other cultures, like they think of demons as completely different types of entities. So it's kind of like we use the framework we have to describe it when like sometimes the words do or don't make sense, but it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, I have 2 categories: hit it with a broom or don't hit it with a broom. Like it's a very big umbrella. That would be a broom situation. Like you're getting hit with a broom.
That would be a run situation, I think.
Yeah,
for me.
that would be I'm done.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No,
I wouldn't hit it because I'd be running.
I'm a flight guy. I'm a freeze guy. I was also like, they were like, oh, can you turn out the light? So I've got the story of the demon in my head, and everybody's going down the stairs because it's the end of the night. And they're like, oh, Zach, you just get the light. And I was like, what? And they're like, yeah,
No.
And they're like, yeah, you just turn the light up. So turn the light off for the room, that then cuts the lights off the stairs that I'm going down. That I'm the last one down. And I'm like, this is cool and great. and fine.
Fine.
It's fine. No, it's totally fine. I would. Somebody has to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know. It was a really, again, I still don't know exactly what I believe. So you were talking about your framework, and I grew up in the South, and so there's this other thing of like you know, ghosts are very tied to, like, we call it, and this is, again, I'll use that, demon worship, right? So that's demon worship.
Mm-hmm.
There are things you don't mess with in the South, like Ouija boards. You never had one growing up. Don't mess with that. Like,
Yeah, fair.
yeah, there are all those kind of things. And so, like, seeing where those lines, the Venn diagram kind of intersect
Yeah.
of spirits and ghosts in the South, you know, that's still like, that's taboo stuff. So you have to, in all the superstitions, tread carefully. But then you look at like in like New Orleans, I don't know if there's like some underlying truth to that thing. There's just some things you don't want to invite into your spiritual realm. And there are other things that you're like, I'm okay with you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No, that's just like it is. I think like when you
Yeah.
were like, "Oh, don't follow me home," and set boundaries and all of that. It's the same that you do with a person in a sense, right? You're like, "Here's my boundaries of my interaction with you. This is okay. This is not," and you have to respect it.
Well,
Yeah.
my wife is smarter than me, and she, on the back end of it, because I got home, I told her like I did the whole thing, and she was like, "Don't carry anything in there. Carry a like bottle of water that you can leave,
Yeah.
and keep it light." And then I was like, "How do you know that?" And she's like, "Why do you think we don't have a mat out front that says you're welcome or welcome in?" Or like, she's
She
like,
gets it.
"We're not inviting these things in our house." And I was like, "How do you?" I was like, "You didn't tell me this before I left." She's like, "You figure it out." She's like, "It's witchy stuff. You don't need to know. You know, you don't need to know everything." And I was like, "That's fair." So
You're like, I have so many protection things even going. I don't even know about it. Right?
yeah,
I did have one more question too.
sure.
If you could go back and talk to yourself before you started, like before you walked in, is there anything you would tell yourself? Especially since it was like your first time doing this.
Right? Or what? It wasn't your first investigation, right?
So I went on a ghost tour. Actually, my wife and I have a really funny story. It was our like maybe third date. And I was pretending like I was a real baller, and we were in Atlanta, and I was like, "Hey, do you want to go to Savannah for the weekend?" And she's like, "I can't." I was like, "I got you. Don't worry about it. All expenses paid. Da da da." And we went on, and she's like, "Oh, this guy must be." I was like, "I'm a middle school teacher. You just got catfished big time." But in all of that wooing, we went on a ghost hunt, and it was terrible. It was, you know, it was in Savannah, which is spooky. And
It is.
the tour guide was like, we had like beers, you know, you can walk around. And she's like, first of all, she's like, I'm a recovering alcoholic. There's no drinking on this tour. And she's like, chain smoking. And I was like, well, what? And I was like, okay, cool, respect. And we got to a cemetery, and she had like a iPad. She's like, if you look right here, you can see the ghost. It just jumps up. And she's like, oh, rewind it, and it just jumps up. And I was like, we're watching it. You know, you could do a story. That'd be cool. And so it got,
Yeah.
and to make matters worse, of all the,
I think you got scammed.
we did.
Was that a ghost tour?
It was
You saw
so,
walking down
and
the street.
it was like packed out. And to make it even worse, like her ex-boyfriend in Atlanta, like a dude she dated like a year prior, and his new girlfriend were on the same, like just walked up out of nowhere and were on the tour. And so
I want to go on this tour.
yeah, and we were
Yeah,
all
to
just
be a
small
fly on the
talking. We're like,
wall.
oh my God, this is, and so we, about 45 minutes in, she was like, let's run away. And I was like, what are you talking about? And she's like, let's make a break for it. I was like, what? And it was like we were skipping school, and we just took off running, and we were just like laughing, like we'd skipped a ghost. Like, it was so
Yeah.
stupid, but it was really funny and
That's a
endearing.
good core memory.
Oh, it was
Yeah.
for sure the moment I fell in love with her. I was like, this is the most fun I'm ever gonna have with any person in the world. Like, I was like, this is ridiculous.
That's so sweet.
But that was our only ghost experience tour. So yeah, this is my first. If I had to like think what would I do differently, to be honest, I wish that she had been there, because she's always like the person I bounce stories off of. She's the kind of like much better half. But I struggle sometimes with processing like what was that, and you know, having her there I think would have helped to alleviate some of that, but also just kind of give another take on it, because I want to believe, and I think she is more discerning. If not, she's not skeptical, because she believes in a lot of spiritual stuff. but I think she's a lot more, she just has a better awareness of things than I do. I just get very like focused and dialed in. And so, I'll miss the forest for the trees sometimes. And I think, yeah, there was a cool experience that I wish I could have shared with her, and logistically with 3 kids, you can't, but that's my only regret. Like I had a wonderful time. You guys were very, very accommodating and patient with a novice person.
You were great. And I love at the beginning, you said it and I didn't say it at the time, but you mentioned that it was like alien technology as we were setting up. And later when he walked in the room into the bottling room after a while, it said something about that on one of the apps. And
It said alien.
Like,
yeah.
It's talking about what he said earlier because we were talking about the devices, and it literally like spit that out right when he walked in, and then it told Carter nice shoes or nice hat, nice shoes, something like that.
Interesting.
But it was the moment they walked in.
Yeah, Carter had another moment too where it said something really weird. Oh, it was his middle name or his nickname, Mo.
His nickname Mo, I believe.
Yeah, and no one in the room knew. And they were like, is there a Mo here? And he's like, yeah, that was my childhood nickname. All my family calls me Mo. So I was like, that's really weird.
That's very specific.
Very specific. There was a couple of moments where I was like, even if the algorithm is just kind of circling and trying to catch something, there's no way it probably would pick up on that. But
and that's how Lindsay and I, when we first started using the apps, we were super skeptical. We researched how they worked, like which ones seemed to be better than another, and the technology that it used. I tested it with EMF readers to see if it gave me the same or similar reading, like would it spike at the same time as an actual EMF reader, and it did. But what really solidified it for us is when it started telling us personal things where we're like, that string of words, none of us would know it. Nor when I use my app, I always turn it on airplane mode, and I make sure that there's no permissions, no sound permissions, nothing. And the things that it spit out were like, why? How?
Yeah.
No.
It would be really interesting to try and have that technology on a device that is completely unconnected to like your data.
There is.
Is there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and also like I have my iPad that I use now, but I also have my old iPad that literally is like, it's just a notes app where I'm scribbling stuff down.
Yeah. There's nothing to pull from.
No.
There's no data. And when I'm out in the world, unless I connect it to something, it can't connect to anything. Like I don't have it on like cellular data or anything like that. And that's what I'll typically use for like that type of app for it, because I have a ghost in my house. My husband and I have tried to talk to it before, and I'm like, okay, it's not connected, like nothing. And things will pop up in ways that you wouldn't expect that feel intelligent, because it's one will always do like we say for science in the beginning of it.
I don't know if he was in there when I did it. I was like, for science.
Yeah.
Staring at me.
Because the idea is that it's not like we're just like a thing happened, therefore it means this, right?
Yeah.
We want it to be testable, repeatable, where we can actually validate the data to a certain amount, because we also want to believe, but we like trust but verify, right? We want to make sure that it's not just like baloney. And I think that it's interesting that you can do that if you like, you use an older device where there's literally nothing on it. It's just like that.
That's interesting.
And Carter's and my app were saying very similar things one after another, and our data wouldn't be similar.
That's really, that's an interesting point. There were moments of almost identical like overlap.
Yeah, because he had my phone when I had the headphones on for a bit too.
Yeah, that was really creepy, by the way, that you really took one for the team, because I was like, no, that's
it's unsettling. I didn't like that I felt something walk by, because I think I even opened my eyes at first and I was like, guys, one of you just walked by? Because something just did.
At one point somebody was, I think, moving their foot, and it was like kind of moving the table, and you're like, yeah, stop that. But it reminded me of like the Conjuring kind of movies and stuff. So I have one last question. I love, obviously, storytelling. I have, I think, my own preferences, but like, is there a film or television show you feel gets it right when we're talking about paranormal experiences, ghosty stuff? Like, is there one that gets closest to what you've experienced, or like you're like, that part is pretty accurate?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm trying to think. A lot of the time it's so sensationalized that you're like, that it's not like that at all. But then at certain points, like when she mentioned we went to Villisca, that was a shit show. Like that was
Yeah, that was
something. And she got pushed. It threw her into one of us. When you're walking forward, like especially us walking forward, and something throws you behind into another person, like there's no way she could have fell backwards walking
and I
forward.
wouldn't have, because like there's stuff that was breakable in there, including other people.
So I feel like a lot of ghost movies have little bits and pieces. And some of the ghost shows, I mean, I can't stand the Ghost Adventures one. Like I just
No, that's it. No.
The only one I could think of that's kind of semi-respectful, that isn't over like sensationalized. And I've only watched a handful of episodes, but the one with Jack Osborne doesn't seem to be that terrible.
Oh, I didn't even know he had one.
I didn't either until recently when we were doing a hotel episode about Hotel Monte Vista. And I stumbled across the episode as I was doing research. So I watched it. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like they do the history. They do this. Of course, it's for TV. So they probably do have to add some, into it.
Yeah, you got to spice it up.
You got to get the network.
Well, it also, like, they need advertisers, right? So it's like, if you have a ghost show
and there's no evidence that you can give.
Yeah, and that's all you do. And the whole point of it is to show that there's activity.
Yeah.
You're inherently biased. Like Amanda and I go and we're like, we're going to have an experience. Let's find out. If we have nothing, then we have nothing.
Yeah.
Great.
We'll just do a history episode at that point if we don't get anything.
Yeah.
And they're not trained to.
Yeah, they're not entertainers.
Like
we're not going to a zoo. Yeah.
That's the ultimate. Yeah, it's definitely, and I have problems with the zoos too, even though I take my kids and I'm kind of,
it's hard.
It feels very, I was thinking, have you seen The Haunting of Hill House on Netflix?
Yeah, I have 2 seasons now, right? I think so.
I think, but the first season, because it ends with like the ghost choosing to stay in the house, that caused them so much grief because that's where their family is. And I thought that was like, it's such a scary show. I was like, this is freaking me out on every level. It's like, I'm
jump
so
scares.
So scary. And there's always something watching you. I was like, okay. But I revisited that with after this whole thing, I was like, oh yeah, it's the place where their family is. That's where they're all together. And, family we haunt each other's. But I was like, that kind of rings true, like a little bit. I was like, that's cool. But yeah, all the sensational stuff. After visiting with you guys, I was like, this isn't the way it goes down.
And sometimes you're just sitting there awkwardly.
Yeah.
Staring at each other.
Okay. Like, my legs are sore.
No one captures that part.
No.
Oh, I've been sitting on the floor for like 6 hours.
That's the majority of ghost investigations is sitting there.
I was really sore. Yeah. I was wearing like
Yeah.
not the right shoes for the occasion.
Yeah.
And I think I was standing for the majority of the night. Somebody was like, oh, he's finally sitting. I was like, is there like a bet on like how long I'm gonna stand? I just didn't want to sit on a spooky floor. I wanted like mobility if I had to move.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well, thank you for your time. It was fun talking and chatting about it.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Thanks for listening. And as always, a special thank you to our patrons who support us via Patreon. Please see the link in our show notes to learn more about how you, yes you, can begin to haunt the dump, guard vortexes, or even become a scorching Sasquatch. Ooh. Also in our show notes, you can find the link to our website, more information on our sources, our social media handles, and our merch store. We'd love for you to keep creeping with us. So if you like this episode, please subscribe, rate, review, and share the show with your fellow creeps and or ghosts. I beg of you.
Amanda stopped recording because she thought I was going to forget about my electricity song. Okay, so Baltimore Gas and Electric, BGE, had commercials that would play on like basic television stations when I was a kid.
Okay.
And it is, are you ready?
Ready.
And I can see it in my head. So it's wires down, red alert, don't go near, you'll get hurt, get some help, better rush, and do not touch. You think I'm done? I'm not. BGE knows what is best. Call on us, it's our request. Get some help, better rush, but do not touch.
Oh my God.
Jazz hands. And if you're in Maryland and we're a child in Maryland and you don't know that song, I will be shocked. Do you see this cat behind me? Just prayer. Oh, there he is.
Yeah. We don't have anything like that.
They don't sing like live wire songs to you guys in the television when you were a kid?
They don't. I feel like the only like informational commercials were like the ones at school for like Dare.
Oh,
Is all I
okay.
remember. And they didn't have
Interesting.
little jingles. It was just like, don't do drugs or you'll die. You know?
Yeah, I mean, like, this is like, I don't know if I'll ever forget that. Like, I'll be like,
Hey, that's
like
good,
90,000 years old, and I'll be like, don't touch those live wires because wires down, red alert. I don't know why I sound like that when I'm old, but like, that's what I'm going to sound like.
Okay.
And
Okay.
you're welcome, Maryland people.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
Mhm, mhm.
Fantastic.